Yes, we are alive and well, and we are on episode 26 today.
And who do we have on?
Who do we have on?
It's Louis, and let's use the actual make my parents happy, even though they're past at this time. But it's Grasse.
Ooh,
it's special, right? Now here's the crazy part: Mom's Italian, Dad's Puerto Rican, name's French.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Somebody's not telling us what was going on back in the day.
I'm Italian and Irish. My last name's German.
So there you go. So that makes a little bit of sense. I have a tiny little bit of Irish in there, just enough. I'm born on March 18th, number one. That's very close to being 100% there. And enough to have me like a kiss me, I'm Irish, little red hair comes in. And I have a hat that says Aaron Gabra. But other than that, you know what I mean? Like straight Italian, lived in Italian world on that spot and came from there. But yeah, so most people just say grass if you're.
I read it as
it's grass.
Idiot, yeah.
Grassy, Grasse, whatever. Who cares?
Oh, absolutely.
Grasse is special. I should put the tilde on it. The tilde's on it on my birth certificate. You know what I mean? But which is special that they did that. But whatever. Again, completely French name. Which is funny because the ties are that's actually the name of the town, by the way, where Louis Vuitton's original manufacturing plant is in France.
Oh, really?
They manufacture now just colognes and perfumes there for Louis Vuitton. But people always, I've grown up with the world calling me Louis V, which is how I came up with Louis Visions, which is another Instagram handle that I have for forever. But everybody's always called me Louis V based off of the Louis Vuitton ties. And they don't realize that my last name is actually the town. Louis Vuitton manufactures cologne in. Still has nothing to do with my family. So I have no idea what that's about.
That's all. Now I'm always going to just be like Louis V. I'm just going to...
Louis V, bro. Listen to Louis.
I like it's Louis G, but I'm going to be like Louis V.
It's a thing.
It rolls.
For forever. It has. It's how I came up with... My company name is Self-Made Visions with a Z at the end. And it's how I came up with that initially was the Visions because all my photographer buddies used to call me Louis V. And they'd be like, it's Louis Visions, bro. It's like, everybody gets to look through your glasses in like a Louis vision. You know what I mean? I have a thing with a Z at the end, too. I have like 6 companies running. Everything always about the Z.
It always has to have a Z, your little Easter egg.
Yeah. Kicks is my other spot. Yeah. Whips is my rental spot for the slingshots. And again, I have those custom license plates. The Z's on there. The back of my car right now is a UFC tag on it that says slaps with a Z. You know? You gotta love it.
So yeah, let's get into that. What is it you do?
That's a good question. Freelance. Quote unquote, air quotes, folks.
There you go. You did, yeah. So what the fuck does Louis V do?
What does Louis do? So I'm obviously a freelance photographer in town. That's probably my main gig. I would guess I'd say. I definitely handle the markets of L.A., Phoenix, and Vegas, but Vegas probably the heaviest.
Right.
And that's been ongoing since probably 2012. I've lived like 6 lives though, so it's one of those things. You know what I mean? And then that's where the age comes in. Nobody realizes you end up living like 3 full-time lives. You know what I mean? And you're like, what did you do? Well. When? Which time?
And then where are you from?
So I was born and raised in New York, New Jersey area.
Okay.
Grew up in that way. I'm a West Side Story kid, obviously. Told you, madre es italiano, padre es puertorriqueño. So that's kind of the standard up there. I kind of grew up that way. I moved middle school to Florida. And then spent the rest of my time until I moved here about 7 years ago in Florida. So
you've only been here for 7 years?
I've been here for 7 years. That's it. I mean, in Las Vegas. I did about a year and a half before that where I was both places.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was super crazy because I was working for the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Most of my family's still in St. Augustine, Jacksonville, Daytona, all through those areas. I've got a sister down in South Florida. I've got everybody in Florida, but man, finally get out of there. You don't try to call back too often.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm out of Florida. Another one, yes.
I was about to say, we can just like axe Florida as a whole.
Just for y'all that happen to be watching, I will drop one Duval just in case you needed it. But listen, everybody keeps their numbers as like a remembrance, right? I give Al even hell about that one. I'm like, still with the Tampa ties, huh? Okay, it's a thing. Yeah. But yeah, so moved over here, but what I did was I got a place actually just up the road. I was at the Evolve Apartments when they first built them up over there on St. Rose.
I was gonna say that's on
St. Rose, just past the eastern spot there, where now across is built the Raider Stadium, everything else there, but that wasn't there at the time. I was bouncing back and forth actually for a while, trying to build some business over here because I knew I wanted to move this way. My wife, who's currently a pre-doctoral candidate in her world, she's a mental health counselor here in town, runs her own practice. And is following up on that, but she had come to finish up looked into either UNLV or was going to do a couple other things on the West Coast.
Right.
I was doing some big FEMA projects with my drone world, which I'll explain.
Yeah.
But that's what was wanting to move me out here. But so I ended up with a place in Jacksonville and a place also here in Vegas for like a year and a half. And while she stayed and finished school at UNF in Jacksonville, I was still bouncing back and forth. So I would do like 2.5, 3 weeks here, and then I'd go back for 2.5, 3 weeks. And I did that for a total year and a half until I could finally make the move.
Right.
And we could get a house over here and kind of just start that process. So it was a weird transition, but I've been here about 7 years solid. So I guess 8.5 in total. Really,
Right.
comes through. So.
Now, what made you have your eyes set on Vegas? Was it because of the work in the sports world?
It's so crazy. No, you know what's funny? It had nothing to do with that at the time.
Really?
And to tell you the truth, like 7, 8 years ago, I don't know if it was as much of an outlook for the people as today, that there was like the sports mecca.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like we're not even there yet. It's just
but
on
it's
the
coming.
cusp. It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. The key was I wasn't sure. I knew I wanted to do photography out here and that be the main focus. I also knew that all of my deployments that I had been pulled for this FEMA work had mostly been California jobs. So I was trying to get closer to it to make sure that I was
in reach.
easier to pull for these type of jobs. So there was a method to the madness at the time. But truthfully, there wasn't a plan. There wasn't much of a plan at all. As a matter of fact, for 2 years prior to moving out here, I really focused on like everything photography. I shot like, man, it was crazy because that was probably end of 2016 run, somewhere around there. Like I shot like 35, 45 concerts that year. I shot all kinds of, I was doing weddings, I was doing bar mitzvahs, I was doing whatever it was.
Right.
Because I wasn't sure when I got out here which one of those niches I was going to be able to really hone in on. One of my biggest ones was real estate photography, and that's probably my claim to fame for Florida side. So as a backdrop from that, I'm a UF grad. I'm a Gator. Chomp chomp. It's a thing. But my background, I have a bachelor's in computer science. You know, I mean, I'm a super geek, and I spent 15 years doing that at a very high level. I was an IT tech. I'm Cisco's networking engineer, and I ended up running the IT department for a pretty prominent mortgage and real estate company in the state of Florida called Watson. They got about 43 offices throughout the state of Florida, and for 15 years, I was the vice president of technology. That's what I did. I went every day in a suit and sat down and.
Whoa!
So you really have lived multiple lives.
I lived multiple lives, bro. I was doing the IT gig was like the heavy run. And I'm talking like old school, pre-Y2K run. Like my certs go back to when most of y'all were probably born, but I'm a geek sometimes. It's a thing. So truthfully, it was one of those things. I hated all of that, though. It started to wear on me.
Right.
And
the corporate kind of wearing
the corporate
suit.
thing started wearing on me. I wore a suit every day. I worked for a very conservative company, which if I even got up out of my office and went to the door to answer somebody, I was supposed to put my jacket back on. Like that type of conservative level. And again, don't get me wrong, got some cool custom suits, and there's nothing wrong with a good custom suit, but I mean, for example, my right sleeve was done in 98, y'all. So this is 25 years ago. So I used to hide my tattooed world. Like people would see me in the mall and be like, who the fuck is that guy?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's fucking Louis from The Office.
Holy shit. You know what I mean? The backdrop to that, just to kind of bring us all around from there, is that the photo gig was like my childhood passion. Most people probably screwed around in their teens with outdoor stuff. I mean, I love to skate. I'm a big skateboarder growing up, but outside of that, man, I did photo shit and computer geek stuff. I was that kid in the family. Everybody brought their broken VCR, DVD player, whatever else to it. I was the fixer. However, like my father, was big into photography, camcorder stuff back in the day, like carrying the old, VCR on the arm with a camcorder style. And I had a full black and white darkroom from the age of 14 to 17 in my house.
Oh,
in my room. So like I was like really a geek into that. I was doing my own my own developing of film canisters, of actually making my prints, and I was big into doing like landscape photography and stuff at that time, but never really knew how to take that into anything. And again, my entire path was IT based, so there wasn't never any of that. I really wanted to get away from that in like 2012. I just wanted to find something different. And it's crazy because most people are like, I got to a point, I wasn't making enough money, I wasn't doing anything else, but I was making good money. My wife, first one. First one. The first one. Wife at the time, I should say, quote unquote.
Wife
at the time was also a loan originator. Like, I mean, we really worked this realtor world craziness. And we just, man, I had a full-time nanny that lived in house, took care of the kids. We just were busy, crazy, nonstop, making great money. But I just got to a point where after 15 years of doing that, I was going in every day, sitting at my desk and just like trying to work on anything but, you know what I mean? And when you realize eventually it's cool, I guess, when you're, you know, mid to late 20s and you're like, okay, I'm wasting the man's money, you know what I mean? And here I am. And then after a couple of years, you get that and you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm dying internally. And yes, it's cool. Yes, it's a nice job. Yes, it's great. Yes, the benefits are good. Yes, the money's good. I mean, at that time, you know, being a 30-year-old who's already been at the same place for 12 years as a VP, bro, you don't, I mean.
Yeah. You're at the top already.
Banking's great. Relationships are good. Everything's easy peasy. However, if you're a true creative, there's times where you're just kind of molting. You know what I mean? You're just kind of dying. You see yourself on the outside, but you're living this out-of-body experience where you're like, I hate this. I hate everything about it. So I tried to quit like 7 times.
What the hell was that?
Use your camera.
Oh, a little voice-activated love.
I think.
What did it say?
I don't know.
It's just random. Is it randomly just taking
I think
pictures
it's
of
either
it?
your camera or your security system. Something.
It sounded like the security system.
It might have been.
Someone's in the house.
Somebody's in the house.
Someone's in the house.
Get out.
His name's Louis.
Yeah, it's that spot. Yeah, so I mean, crazy run was every time, you know, the corporate gig like that, every time you throw something out and you really think you're going to be able to pull the trigger, you're like, that's it. I got to quit. I'm out of here. And then there's always something. Let me throw a couple extra stock options at you. Or how about an extra $10K a year? You know, I mean, every time you go home and then you tell that to the wife and then she's like, yo, you got to just do it, you know?
Yeah.
So I knew working for that super conservative company, one day I would just lose my shit and go through there. And that's how it worked out. 2012,
you lost your shit?
I lost my shit. I had a full-blown Tom Cruise moment. Lost my shit. I drove had a beautiful street glide at the time. I won't get into that on this podcast. That's for another one. But I spent 10 years building custom motorcycles.
What the
what? So we'll take you through that. Crazy airbrusher. That's how the whole thing comes around, Robin, with the streetwear kicks and stuff like that. We don't have enough time on this podcast. But listen, episode 2.
Yeah, when we do Louis 2.0.
Louis 2.0. I'm happy to be back.
Cow.
I come with like a rebook right there. You know what I mean? Like, we got a rebook. And that was,
rebook,
there's not enough time in one episode. The CPM's too low.
But dude, what's not to sidetrack real quick.
Yeah.
What's great about this, because usually when we have guests on, we write out some kind of loose talking points, some questions. We send it to them beforehand just so they kind of know.
For sure.
I have an answer. Okay, they're going to ask about this. This one, we didn't.
Straight off
We're
the
like,
cuff.
we've seen Louis enough. We've run into him enough. He's a great talker. We're not even going to we're just going to off the riff.
Well, that's good.
And so it's great that
I'll take
you've
it.
lived 10
I
lifetimes.
get people all the time on my streams and stuff. They're like, you have the most amazing radio voice. And I'm like, listen, ladies and gentlemen, that could be another career path that I hop on for there. So y'all will love how this went down. So I do lose my shit. I drive my all black street glide to work that day. Say, screw this. I literally wore for the first time, and at this time, 2012 now, I'd worked there 15 years, something like that, 15 and a half years, I think I was there. So first couple years as a contractor and then the rest as that spot. I wore a nice button-up, no tie, no jacket. Immediately, just even trying to walk to my private office upstairs, somebody was like, dude, what's wrong with Louis? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on?
You said it's a short sleeve?
Short sleeve. So
like,
you
can see your tattoos.
So people
can
see, and at that time, nothing went past the wrist.
Right.
You couldn't see that on the cuff. And
Yeah,
people
that
were like,
hard line is like the classic.
yeah, that's like that was the constant, right? So everything was added thereafter. So that day I was like really just I had decided that day I was going to just try and put it all on the line. The sad part is that you know, the president of said company growing up, it was a family business. The president was a very good friend of mine that I grew up going to school with. His father's company, and he had eventually become the president of the mortgage company I was working for. So it was really weird because it was a friend relationship / 15 years of working / 6 years before that. A lot of time in there, man. A lot of time invested. But I knew I could figure them out by just losing my shit. And the one thing that they hated was my tattoos because it was just the anti-conservative. You know what I mean? Bible Belt, you know what I mean? I grew up going to Catholic school, and I'm in a Southern Baptist world down there. You know what I mean? So like, people used to walk their kids on the other side of the fucking mall when I walked past. In 1999, bro, people were like, "Excuse me, honey,
fucking
that's
this criminal."
Yeah, like straight up, this dude's felonious from the time he woke up. So I went to my longtime tattoo buddy that day for lunch, as a matter of fact, and did the craziest thing ever. I drove my street glide there that day, and he's like, "What are we doing today?" And I was like, "Bro, I have got to find a way to make this new life happen." So
Oh,
that's where we
shit.
go. So that day we tattooed brake and clutch on both of my hands so that they knew where to put them back on the handlebars when I drove off that day. And I drove my ass back to work. I stopped at it was like a Ross or something else from there. I picked up like a pair of shorts and a tank top, which was unheard of. You know
To
what I mean?
go back into work?
Went back to there, cleaned up my office, put all that shit in a box, basically put it to the side, went upstairs, changed my clothes, went down into the parking lot and burned my suit.
No.
Swear to God, this is real life. Burned my suit so the point, like the receptionist at the front door could see there's a physical fire in
Right.
the parking lot right next to the one parking space over from my street glide. I'm in there with plastic wraps on my hands, bro. Like, it's so crazy, this story. It's like True Hollywood. Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, when is this coming out on a Lifetime
Yeah, so
movie?
it's so crazy because they came out to see the fire, and that was my wow moment. I'm like, so the fires, don't worry, it's under wraps. It's
contained.
just my clothes, and I quit. That's pretty much it. Like, I quit, and he was like, "Dude, we've been over this like 4 times in the past 6 months," and I'm like, "He's like, what's all over your hands?" I'm like, "Oh, listen, I tattooed brake and clutch on my hands so that you guys realize that truthfully, I'd prefer just to live on 2 wheels for life, and I got to do something, so I'm riding the bug out. We're done." And they were like freaked out. Obviously, was freaked out. It was like a whole. That version, again,
This dude's going through a meltdown.
They were like, dude, full blown midlife crisis, and he's doing it right here
Yeah.
at work, which
In
is
my
weird.
parking lot.
So weird. So it's crazy. So ultimately, it definitely put the straw on. They still tried a couple different things. I ended up staying on for like 5 months as a contractor to kind of train a replacement.
Okay.
Which is funny as I continued to
Transitional period.
transition. They even tried at that point. They're like, dude, it's not so bad. It's just a couple tiny tattoos. They have ways to remove those nowadays. And I'm like, bro, it's not happening.
Oh, they
were
like,
still
wanted you.
And listen,
Dude.
looking back, I'm like, what a cool nod. You know,
Yeah.
to have built a career path with a bunch of these friends and stuff like that. But I just knew, like, without saying them direct, like, I've just wasted, a 6-figure salary with you guys for 5 years. Like, and you want to pay me? I'm telling you, I'm on
done,
Yahoo all day doing nothing that works for this. I had 12 employees, bro. Like, I mean, and they're well-trained network engineer guys. These guys make 50, 60K a year. It's not you go in and go, I need you over there. And they would call me every 3 days. Like, oh, by the way, we finished X number project, this, that, and the whole thing. Yeah. So that's when I decided to create Self-Made Visions, which is still operating today. We're just finishing off our 10-year anniversary, actually, beginning of that spot when I created Self-Made Visions, and that was the finalized run. I actually tattooed Self-Made on my knuckles. And
what is Self-Made Visions?
So Self-Made was just my point of Self-Made Visions is my photography videography company, the parent company that I now have several underneath, and that was kind of my final break off of like, I'm really, really going to do this. I'm not going to. I had a lot of other job offers on the table. Other people had found out that I've been working with, different things that I was available, and they were like, "We don't care, you got tattoos, bro." Like,
right.
Some of the certs and stuff that I have took 10 years to obtain. Like, people would have loved at that time just to have that because value-added resellers and such were getting better deals on products and stuff like that just by having somebody of my certification status on staff. So a lot of other places tried, man. I did a lot of different IT jobs, back and forth, but I never took one on that wasn't contract from that point. And I did them all under that new Self-Made Visions, which was just my idea. It mixed the Louis V everybody used to call me, Louis Visions, with just this self-made push that I felt at that time was like, I can redo this. I wasn't self-made to begin with. I literally worked full-time since I was 14. I already had my first IT help desk job at 17. And I grew up in a world of while I was going to college, I only went to college for those further things because each company I was working at was basically promising me more money and paying for it. They're like, we'll pay for your credit hours. And once you get your AA, we're going to bump your salary this. And once you get your bachelor's, we'll bump your salary this. That world doesn't exist as much anymore nowadays. It's few and far, I guess, unless you're stuck in there. But it was kind of weird because I was kind of wrangled, into that IT push, which I think is probably why I died creatively during that process. So there it is. So 2012. So that was the push. And again, I didn't know what that would exist. It didn't immediately become photography.
Oh, okay.
I had done a lot of side photography over the years. My first published works were Lowrider Magazine, and I did Lowrider Magazine, Super Street Bike, and a couple other ones. I had pictures published and full articles published in 2001. 2002, 2005. I did a Lowrider Euro full 8-page spread that we did on them. I used to go to a lot of car shows, bike shows.
Yeah.
And then I just started realizing, I could take these pictures and then submit to these big magazine companies. They don't have to send a photog, pay for travel, everything else. And they'll pay me?
They'll just pay for it.
Publish my shit, and then I'm at Books A Million, really looking at 900,000 copies of Lowrider Euro went out.
Nice.
And I really started getting bigger into that. The motorcycle thing was big at that time. Again, always been an airbrusher, sketcher, kind of geek with some type of medium for creative outlet. And I was like, you know what, maybe I'll get back into this. Maybe I'll leave me money back on that side. And when I picked back up the cameras at that time, I think I jumped into a Nikon.
What year was that when you picked the cameras back up?
The end of 2013, I want to say, was around there where I was like, let me find if there's something.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, 10 years. Let me see what I can do with it. What could I possibly turn this into? I just didn't have a clue. And I loved everything about that at the time. I loved just the freedom of...
Oh, really? You love that you didn't really have an idea or a plan?
Because I was so structured for so long in the 8 to 5 conservative world. We did afternoon lunch and learns. We did Tuesday and Thursday realtor parties. And Saturdays, I owned a boat. I lived in Florida. We went wakeboarding every weekend. But it was I just wanted to just... Yeah, it was just repetitive. It was rinse and repeat. And internally, my creative body was just dying. It's just a thing where you got to listen to that at some point in time. The camera thing for me was how could I do this? Because so many people were like, why don't you do something with the cameras? It's I always had a camera.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I used to give you hell when you're like, dude, he's always got something around his neck. He's always got something. That was me, no matter what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I got to travel a lot at a very early age because of all these different conferences, a Cisco conference here, training here, this and that. And I would take my camera. That's what I would do. People would be in the hotel the whole 5 days. And I'm like, bro, I rented a car. I was here for 6 minutes. And then I'm out exploring. I've never been to Nashville.
Yeah.
21. I got a car paid for, a place to, everything was done. I'm taking pictures.
Yeah.
I'm doing whatever. Turned it into that pretty early. I locked in for this is where the drone thing comes in. We'll tie into that one. It makes sense, right? Because this is what really pushed the photography. So 2012, I locked in with a company called Classroom. Well, we'll say Classroom. They're based in Florida, and what they do is they supply the digital smart boards that Florida classrooms use in all their schools.
Oh, okay.
So, which was a thing for me. I'd already been out of school for quite some time. My kids were already right around that age where they were grown past that.
Yeah.
And the digital smart board world was super interesting.
We used to have overheads.
Yeah, the overhead was kind of the first run.
Yeah.
Today's world, they have a digital board that's tied in.
It projects.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. And the overheads were great, man. Transparencies. Who didn't
I was
love
going to
the
say transparent. Yeah.
Who didn't love the old transparency runs? I use a lot of those still today. I still have one, as a matter of fact, the smaller one that I use for a lot of sketching stuff because they're great for doing.
Oh, that's right.
If you create something in a sketch drawing or in today's world like a vector line art, and then you can use that to do that whole wall, right? Use the overhead and do that.
I see people use the projectors and they project it onto the cloth, and then they sew it and they make the carpets.
Amazing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I love that. I love that design.
Yeah.
There's new apps, by the way, that worked with that wall mural shit that works with an iPhone and shows you where to actually fill in. Pretty crazy stuff. But separate spot. That was a big tie. So anyway, I locked in with this company on a contract for 7 months, and basically they just needed somebody as a true liaison because they were selling this product, and they were more of a Salesforce company,
right.
But they needed some technical dealings. They were dealing with a large manufacturer out of Guangdong, China, and that was making all these things, and they were importing and exporting, hundreds of thousands of dollars of product a month, and they had really I don't want to toot a horn, but they had nobody at my expertise level in the technical field. So they were, if they had any problems, any problems with interactivity or how it was working with that, that's it. They had to call in extra people. So I tied on with this company, and immediately within a month and a half, I'm in China.
Damn.
What? I mean, that's.
I didn't sign
and I just wanted to leave that there for a second. Immediately within a month and a half, I'm in China. So China has huge Hong Kong technical fairs twice a year. Happens in the spring and the summer. That's how they run out there. Very much like our local World Market Center does these once or twice a year. Big shindigs where they kind of show everything they've been working on the past year. China's so far in front of us technology-wise, especially then. Probably more so now, but it is what it is. So at that time, we were going to the fair to look for and possibly source even new vendors that were making newer or cooler versions of this board. One of the biggest things at the 2013 technical fair, ladies and gentlemen, was the drop of the non-GPS drone. the non-GPS quadcopter, what was eventually to be known as the DJI Phantom, right?
Gotcha.
I brought one of those home with me in 2013. It was 100% just like flying an RC helicopter. Had nothing in the world to do. There was no GPS. There was no cool, stable flight. There was a, you're probably going to break this 100 times. There was no, FAA didn't even know these things existed. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the game. So I brought one of those back, and then, man, I fell in love.
How much was it?
I think I paid $200 US for it at the time, which was crazy because it was like a show special deal that they had where they basically were selling me one of their demo units that they had, and I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll take it. I had the hardest time getting it back in the country. It was like
because they had no clue.
I got to the airport, so I flew all the way from Hong Kong to Tokyo to Seattle, and when I got to Seattle, they were like,
what is this?
What the hell is that? Like,
yeah.
What's so they kept it. It took me like a week and a half till I finally got it. I was paying the tail. I finally got it. I flew it bananas, man. I crashed this thing 100 times. It had like duct tape and all kinds of stuff on it by the time it was done. But I made a great relationship with the company that was overseas, and then I knew already then I was going back in October for this other company. We did a big deal with the state of Florida at that time, and I think they outfitted like 16 counties worth of schools, bro. I mean, it was like millions and millions and millions of dollars for this big project, and I was assigned to go and work overseas to oversee the actual production.
Oh, nice.
So not only did I go and spend 2 weeks this time that October at the Hong Kong Technical Fair, but then 2 more weeks I was invited to China on behalf of the company, which at that time I had a couple passport stamps, y'all, but I didn't realize you had to be like invited to China.
Oh, right.
So that was a thing. But I got to go to Shenzhen and Guangdong on behalf of the company. And this is pre-DJI, all that stuff from there. But I got to go and actually oversee the export of them creating that and make sure that everything was being created to spec and work with those guys. Yeah. Super cool experience. Spent 1 month total during that time, the entire month of October in China, which was ridiculous and super, super eye-opening for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I really got to spend a couple weeks' time with... in between my free time, I continued to deal with this manufacturer company that was making drones. The manufacturing company eventually sold off to what we now know as DJI.
Oh, nice.
Which is crazy because my ties with DJI go back to pre-DJI world.
Before it even existed.
And I brought another 2 drones home with me at that time, and they were first starting to test some satellite positioning. It wasn't yet used for stability, but it was used for finding the drone and stuff like that. Very early runs, and I was hooked. I was hooked, and I was like, dude, this is the future. I don't know how or why yet. But at that time, they had stopped. My first ones were all just quadcopters. There was no camera. There was none of that. It was just a flying RC.
Right.
The ones I brought home later that year had the first version of you could connect a GoPro to it. And we're talking at that time GoPro 1.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like, And all it had was like a cradle, where you could tape.
Right.
Like, early model action cam.
Some gaff tape
showing
to
my
it.
age here, y'all. It's one of the things. Just gaff tape it on and call it a day. And they're like gimbal video. I'm like, I don't know. I took a picture of the sky. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? It didn't even matter at that time, which was so cool. So that really, when I came back, I spent some time early that year, and believe it or not, the company really reached out to me well from China and was like, dude, what are you doing with this company in this classroom world? It's like, I hope it's good money, but we would love to look for some connection to America to really start kind of pushing this type of tech. Like you're
in that market.
I was big into flying those little RC helicopters at the time. I mean, I could do all kinds of tricks and flip them upside down and stuff. This just me geeking out.
Right.
And this was my new world. Like when I showed them what I had learned just on their quadcopter in a year, they were like, wow, this is crazy. You got to start thinking about the new ways. And again, 2014, bro, we had no idea like what
it would be today.
What that would be. Had no concept and where that would go. So I really kind of started the drone / photo company at the same time, thinking, okay, well, here's what my new focus will be for 2014.
Right.
Because I had dabbled in so much, but the one thing that I was lacking in my new creative world was that stability of, like, I knew very much what I did, who I was before.
Yeah.
And I kind of lacked a little bit of identity in the new world, where I was like, I have these skill sets, but
yeah,
if you work in a world like that, where you work a corporate job 15 years, you go every day, like, it's sad that you actually start to believe like that's you.
Yeah.
So you go and meet people, and people are like, what do you do? Like, oh, I'm a vice president of technology. How are you? But that's not who the fuck you are. That's just like what you do. And it took a long time to reprogram that, to really not think like, This guy would have thought differently of me. He met me in a pair of shorts and a tank top, and I shook his hand with tattoos on my hand.
Yeah.
He had one concept. If he knew that I could have been the key to his $1 million house just 6 months ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then I had X number of experience, or I've got this type of thing. Like, people, it was hard to then bypass that.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I always loved about Vegas, by the way, and it's probably why Vegas came back up on the schedule so many times. In my corporate life, I came out here nonstop.
Yeah,
So,
gigs and
I came out here nonstop for trainings, for conferences. It's so funny because the only place I ever brought my camera on going, I look forward to next month shooting SEMA for my 15th year in a row.
Wow.
Dude, nice.
So I mean, like,
I don't think I've ever even been to
I got
it.
a funny SEMA story.
we should definitely make sure you guys go this year. Let's all go. So I get
would
to.
love to.
Well, you're already there. You're already working, so.
Yeah, but you guys need to come in under me. If not, I'll get video passes. I'll run. Let's do it. Let's do that. Let's really create some stupid shit. Let's do a live podcast at SEMA. Okay.
What's this
But it has
podcast about?
nothing to
Not
do-
cars.
It has nothing
Not
to do with
cars.
SEMA.
Not cars. Let's do that. Wait, just cars and shit in the background, all kinds of stuff. I love that idea.
I was
by
like,
the way.
this podcast is going to be
love
about
that.
SEMA. And we're like, we have no clue what's going on.
I love that. So it's funny because at that time there was no plan. There was nothing in the world that said what you would do with a drone. And I wasn't that interested, truthfully, in what I would do with an RC drone. I was so stuck on how can I take a picture from the sky. Like it just literally encompassed me to a point where I just couldn't think about much else. And I started doing all kinds of shit, right? Early model action cams. I had these ties to these Chinese companies. Like GoPro was coming out with their tech, but I could get these little 720p action cams at that time that were $7 to $12 a piece from China.
Oh, shit.
And we'd pull these things in and just tape them to stuff, break shit. I tried everything with these stupid things. I broke so many drones. But I reached out, and admittedly, I lived in Florida. Hurricanes are a thing. And I got tied in with a big insurance company that year. It was my first big gig as Self-Made Visions doing photography. And I was basically pulled in after a hurricane to do pictures for insurance damage.
Oh.
Super cool gig. I thought this was so fun. So at the time, it was just photography,
camera,
right? Yeah, it was just photography. And basically, we were... I had a good old school super tripod at that time, like a 23-footer or something that was used for doing like real estate stuff out front or whatever.
Yeah.
There was nothing else in the world at that time that went 20 feet up except another tripod. You could hold your camera up there like I think it was an old Nikon DSLR at that time. You're like,
shaky.
Oh, Jesus. It was a D70, D80, D90. I don't remember back at the time. I was a Nikon boy for a little bit. Sorry, Nikon. I can't.
So was Sean.
Yeah, see that? We all started somewhere. Yeah. Just so you know, Nikon, that means kindergarten level.
Yeah.
Let's just say. No, shout out to Nikon if you want to sponsor the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. We'll take
why not? We'll take it in there.
Shit.
And actually it was funny because that was when the light bulb moment. Because this was a guy that was like, dude, I've got more work. I'm going in, I'm taking pictures of like water damage, flood damage, holes in the roof, you know what I mean? And what they just needed was good pictures. And at the time, it wasn't even that they were good. They needed something that was going to be quality that they could do zooming and stuff in there. You know what I mean? And most, again, 2014, what were we at? 2 megapixel, maybe the best, like a 1DX was shooting 8 megapixel at, the time, right? Yeah. And that's if you were a super pro. Like, I had never even held a 1DX at the time, you know what I mean? Like, that was unheard of. I didn't do anything in that world. So, but I remember that guy, like, dude, if there was a way we could get you on a roof, you know what I mean? Like, where we could start doing like a roof inspection, something where you could take pictures from up there, that'd be crazy. And I was like, there's going to be a way, somehow, some way we'll figure this out. Long story short, I ended up in a small group of people that used to get called from different insurance companies to do these type of gigs. And they paid well because there was big money on the other end for them, you know what I mean, in the insurance world. And it sucked because... everybody else just spent all year going, I don't want a hurricane, you know what I mean? And I was like at home just chomping at the bit, like, please blow out Miami. You know what I mean? Like, it's a run.
There's going to be so much insurance.
So bananas. So it's so crazy because the next year, the technical fair in October, I went back and I had now done a couple different things and I had still tried so many things. I went there that year. I was only there for 10 days that year, but I spent 3 days specifically with the drone manufacturers, explaining to them basically that I had taped these things on, I had done duct tape GoPros, I did all these things. How do we get to this point? They showed me at that time their first ever, what would eventually become the Phantom One, right? New company, new setup, was a whole different thing. They'd been bought out, traded 16 different times, but the manufacturing crew was the same. And they kept moving through. So they told me 3 months. They kept telling me 3 months, like January 1, 2015. and we got this. You know what I mean? I don't even remember when the release of the first DJI was. I don't remember on that spot, but I know that I had a Phantom 1 equivalent without any DJI branding or anything else in there in my hands before Christmas of that year. And I started selling it to everybody. Like, let's try this. Let's do whatever else. And I mean, this one was light GPS based. It had like GPS stability, but no GPS like auto hover or anything like that. So, but I could fly, man. I was pretty confident at that time. Like, I could fly. I could definitely get you a picture where we can't get to.
Right.
And I was doing this hurricane run with that. I met a couple guys, FEMA reps at that time, that were like, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, well, we do insurance inspections after the fact. And they were like, I want to link you up with this tree cut guy. And I never realized this, but FEMA then brings in all these tree cutters, all the electrical things. Whenever there's a hurricane in Florida, they have all these staging areas. And then all of a sudden you're like, dude, all these cherry pictures, all the electrical guys ready to fix the broken down. But you don't think about all of the sub-services that happen post that. Everything from cellular towers, which are the biggest concern because obviously trying to keep communication up. But the tree cutting service, you don't think about just the messes that get made on the road, all the branches and everything have to be cut down. Some of these tree cutting services come and stage up 50, 60 companies from the entire East Coast just because as soon as the hurricane hits, they're like, load them up. We're going down. So they have to use, they have to do pictures as well, but they do a lot of them from the cherry picker, like a whole area.
Right.
And then they get paid like per yardage of, tree stuff that they bring in, branches or whatever, based on the dump. So it was kind of crazy that they tied me with that company. And immediately the guy's like, dude, we could use a drone and do like miles of this at a time instead of setting the cherry picker,
going up.
like it's a pain in the ass.
Right.
And this guy's in a bucket. He's taking pictures of a quarter mile at a time. And each contracted company was getting awarded 13 to 20 miles of highway, you know what I mean? Like, and county roads. So I got the first gig doing drone work with them through FEMA. We did such a good job in being able to get them sped up that FEMA at that time was like, we're going to be putting together a search and rescue crew and kind of a post apocalyptic hurricane
disaster,
crew. Disaster crew. And we'd love you to be a part of it. And we've got some other people and obviously have like-minded pilots and things like that would eventually become this. Again, no FAA exists. There's no such thing as a license for this. There's no such thing as a
Wild West.
Yeah, it's just Wild West. It's just, rung what you brung, you know what I mean, type of deal. And we kind of ran with it. And it went bananas. Long story short, 2014, I signed contract with FEMA to do their orange level immediate support, and that turned into a crazy run, man. I ended up doing like 15 in 2.5 years' time. I did like 15 major hurricane jobs for them.
Oh shit!
Which kind of just led into it. Again, Hurricane Matthew. All these hurricanes hit Florida and left just craziness behind there, and we would get called that day,
right,
and then deployed. And immediately deployed. I even went to the big hurricane that smashed out Puerto Rico, which was 2016, 2017, somewhere in that range. And they flew me down there for a month, bro, on the back of a C-130 sitting on my Pelicans full of drones. You know what I mean? Like literally holding onto the straps you see in the movies, flying on the back of a C-130. And Puerto Rico hadn't had power or water, by the way, for like 2 weeks at that point.
Oh, fuck.
And literally, so we're flying down with supplies. We're going to pick up service trucks. Shout out to Puerto Rico. Thanks to those guys that held me up in the T-Mobile truck. That was nice to get my water and my cell phones. That was fun. Thank you. Appreciate it. Dude, but ultimately, like all that thing turned into this whole thing where all of these jobs, I was bringing my cameras, right? Mm-hmm. And then I would find local stuff to do here. But now I'm getting deployed 2-3 weeks here, 3-5 weeks here. And then we started doing that for wildfires.
Oh, fuck.
So the wildfire thing ended up picking up pretty crazy. By that time, I had about 2.5 years in with the FEMA team. Joined in for Team Rubicon. I've been Team Rubicon since like 2017 out there as well, which is kind of that. It's kind of what an organization created out of what we were doing at that time became. Mm-hmm. And then I got pulled out big for the Malibu fires that were huge. And I met the FEMA representative out there that's in charge of the wildfire disbursement unit. And somehow or another, he had already heard of me before. I did a big thing previous to that. Like Fox News ran my big stuff of Hurricane Matthew. I did like the only 2-mile stretch. I did a 2-mile stretch sitting in, I had a police escort. I was in a state trooper car driving a Phantom 2. What the fuck? Right down A1A's dropped stuff. I'll show you guys the YouTube video later. It still exists. And they used it heavy, like on the Weather Channel every day for like 9 days. They paid me $5,000 for that video. And then I was like, this is my new life.
There it is.
This is what I do.
There's your ticket.
That guy saw the video, met me at Malibu fires. Like, I mean, Malibu was still on fire when I was out there. I was flying the drones over areas to show them hot spots.
I think I was at Venice Beach when Malibu was still on fire.
Damn.
So I could see it.
Yeah.
And we were just hanging out at the beach. Like
this was
about the time.
2016?
Yeah, it's like 2016. So at that time, I had already gotten an apartment out here. Mm-hmm. Because I knew, I was like, dude, this move is starting to come on. And the wildfire thing was so intriguing to me because it was constant. The hurricane world I was waiting for over there was a couple times a year, right. Once or twice. And I'm like, so dude, you know what I need? More natural disasters. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that fucked up?
This coast has water. Yeah. This coast has fire. I'm set, dude.
Shout out. Sorry. Listen, the good news is capitalism is alive and well. Yeah. But separately, I was like, dude, I got to get closer. I got to get out there. This guy is like, I want you on this team. Mm-hmm. This red team is like the immediate deployment. Like, this is the one you're
first call.
Yeah, and they're
first
like
responders.
Yeah, first responder team. We're gonna put you through Caltrans training. We're gonna put you through Cal Fire training. We're gonna put you through all this different stuff, and then come through the spot. I started that path and finished all of it 1.5 months before the Paradise fire in California. Which wiped out the entire town of Paradise. You know, I mean, it was the largest wildfire disaster that took place. This was the end of 2019, Ron. So crazy. Now, I'd already moved back out here. I was really looking sports world back and forth. Everything's starting to build up a little bit out there. I'm doing some random concerts out here. I locked in to do a couple different sports. Obviously, I had shot previously for some work with the Tampa Bay Bucks, and I spent 2.5 years doing like early social work for the Jaguars, getting to shoot on the field, getting to shoot all over. And again, this was pre-social media departments. This wasn't even they were still figuring it out. But the drone money was so crazy, dude. I just wanted to be close to that. Like, my drone deployment days at that time with FEMA were $1,100-1,300 a day.
Oh, fuck.
You know what I mean? Plus expenses, plus per diem, plus whatever.
And you're going out for
7, 10 days, 15 days. I mean, you come back and they're like $20K, $25K, $30K.
Damn.
I'm like, hey, this is how I up the ante. This is how I get better drones. This is how I get better equipment. This is how I buy a 400 millimeter. This is like, so I started really seeing that although I want to keep building this onesie twosie game where I can make $100 gig and shoot somebody's fucking real estate spot or fly a drone and that, again, that was the tie back to real estate. I knew so many people in the real estate world that it automatically made sense to shoot real estate, but now I could also do drone stuff. And at that time, people weren't. It was like a way added service. Licensing started coming out. I was in early adopter for my FAA license and everything else because I was in this first responder unit. Mm-hmm. I did Caltrans training. I did Caltrans highway training. I learned how to, do everything that California needed inside of there. And when the Paradise fires hit, I was hired. The company that I was with was hired by the CPUC, which is the California Power and Utility Commission, which actually oversees PG&E, SDG&E, and all the companies that run electrical companies in the state of California. And at the time, they were trying to prove that PG&E was at fault for the fire, right? So I didn't realize that at the time, but I didn't care because the money they were throwing at us was ridiculous. So that was that. So I came out. I was deployed for 13 months.
Dude.
13 months for that?
13 months. Shit. During which time I moved my wife here to Las Vegas during that time. And for the whole first year that she was here, I didn't live here. I lived
because you were in California, right?
29 different places. I moved to different city about every 5-6 days. We scanned 15,000 electrical structures about every month. With the team. We had 140 teams on the ground, 2-person teams that went out, drone teams, and basically, again, PG&E has 670 miles of electrical structures that require inspection that are off the roads, right? That are in the mountains, that are in private land, that are in all these crazy, fan spinning worlds, those whatever. It's just crazy how much exists in Central California, all throughout all these free range cow lands. Some of these people in Cayucos and San Luis Obispo, places like that, they own 500 acres, bro. But they, PG&E pays them to have structures. So we went to drone each individual structure, basically.
Right.
I did this for 13 months straight.
Damn.
At a rate of $1,500 a day. Listen to me. There was some shit that went down, and we signed that contract thereafter. So the crazy part is we created a new company inside of there. Me and a couple of the other buddies from there, a company's called Inver Systems. We started doing, basically data sets and inventory analysis of these things, finding out that every electrical structure in the entire United States, let alone the entire country, let alone the globe, has a set time where they have to physically be inspected. So not only did they have to be inspected over, by helicopter or anything else, but physically, people would go and climbers have to climb them once every 2 years.
Right.
And these guys make stupid money, hazard pay and shit.
Fuck yeah, they do.
But we could do their entire job in 30 minutes, and it takes them a day. So we started pushing this heavy, man, and really getting through there, and we got picked up on crazy stuff. Next thing I knew, we had a big project. I started doing LiDAR stuff, and then we got big into LiDAR.
What's that?
LiDAR is basically using... So we use LiDAR today's world on our iPhones and everything else to basically do this scan, like a 3D scan, right? So LiDAR creates what we probably know in most gaming engines for like these cities and everything else like that.
Gotcha.
So I have a LiDAR camera that flies on the bottom of one of my bigger drones that actually will scan from 200 feet up in the air, can scan the world and create a 3D model of it with accuracy to a half a centimeter.
Holy shit.
They're using it to find lost mine ruins.
For sure.
Right? Because they can see through the jungle.
For sure. The crazy part is ever since like iPhone 12, I think they started putting LiDAR units that are inside the phone. So if you ever messed with that, you can scan an entire room. And LiDAR, for example, is how they do AR. If you've ever used like Amazon's AR, augmented reality, where you can be like, I'm going to buy this couch, and then click on it, and you can actually put the couch in your room.
Oh, yeah.
So it's using LiDAR to create that 3D world, if you would. The LiDAR is used heavily, not just for gaming engines and stuff like that, but also for scanning buildings, complexes, and structures. And structures, right? So I can scan a cell tower, for example, with a LiDAR, and they can use that model that I create with that half a centimeter accuracy to figure out whether or not it's going to hold the new 5G antennas they're looking to put on there.
Interesting.
Without having to take the whole thing apart or anything else. The technology grew far beyond what I could even keep up with, but we stayed pretty far in front of it, and the company continued on. We signed a huge contract with PG&E in 2020 for 5 years at that time to keep guys on the ground. I still actively train twice a year. I train my new groups. They go out for 3-4 months at a time. And that's actively still been going on, although I haven't personally been back in the field myself for 2 years. But even this year alone, I had 60 crews out. You know what I mean? So that still runs.
You still have that whole business.
I still have a whole business model that runs off of that. That business model basically allows me to eat or die in every other model that I'm in. So that's the good news behind that. And that's funny because that is the drone world that most people don't even know I'm in.
Right.
Dude,
no, I mean
2019, I became the lead FAA Fast Team safety representative here for the FSDO WP19 here in Las Vegas. I'm also the local Las Vegas drone pro here in Las Vegas FAA. I do monthly webinars. I teach Metro every month on what to do with ramp inspections. I teach them how to properly do a ramp inspection, what they should be asking for if they come up on you while you're flying drones. We just did a huge webinar last month and had like 1,200 different Leos in from 15 different states across the U.S., teaching them how to properly do ramp inspections, what to look for, ask for, licensing, insurance, all this other stuff. So it's been pretty crazy. The drone thing is like the full-time gig. So funny because everybody's always like, dude, you do all these sports, you do this. I'm like, that's my second job.
Dude, that's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
What's your third job? Because you have a sneaker business too.
Sneaker business. Good Lord. What the hell?
Bro, all I'm getting from this podcast is like, I'm not doing enough.
No,
like,
please don't take that on there.
I'm taking
24 hours in a day.
Listen, ADHD does not have to be a crutch, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, you can use that to your advantage. Some of us have found out the way you don't have to medicate all the time. Yeah. You don't have to do things. You can actually just use it to your I'm all over the place world, right? Creatively, that's what we need. The funny part is looking back at like those days when I was sitting in my desk in my suit,
right,
very confident about my knowledge of my job and my people and everything else from there, and just thinking like, there's something else, you know what I mean? And then it's so funny because now every day
there's 10 things else for you. It's not just something else.
Something else just continues to come, and opportunities just keep. The opportunities, if you're listening to this today, guys, opportunities come with confidence. That's the reality of that. Opportunities present themselves based on your own level of confidence. So if you're confident in a world, think about this. You've always found your next best girlfriend when you had one, right? You always found your next best car when you already drive one.
Did we?
I don't know. It's one of those things. But I always,
girls, you always get hit on the most when you're taken.
It's because of the confidence level.
Because you don't give a fuck.
It's because you don't give a fuck. It's because you're not spending all of your time trying to figure out how to seek that, right?
It's like there's a camera there. I can't be saying this shit. I'm married.
No, it was just that analogy was funny. It's like you always find your next girlfriend when you
shout out to you, Jordy. I'm just saying, like, it's a thing. Yeah, I'm not saying how to leave it. I'm just saying that I never realized in business that was a playful thing. And the funny part is in today's world of being a photographer, as you guys know, it doesn't matter how good you are with your camera. That's 10%.
Right.
Yeah.
So if the problem that I see a lot of younger creators now, especially coming up in this social media world where truthfully UFC is a prime example of that. How many of these people just go to work and they're like, I work for the social media team. They hand them an iPhone and they're like, now go just make content. You're like, I get that. And I'm not saying that they don't do a great job on that, but you're catering just to the fans on TikTok or Twitter or something else like that. I'm talking about coming up as a creative, trying to find out how do I send an invoice? Right. How do I send estimates? How do I
do my fucking taxes?
How do I how do I do my taxes? Who am I? What do I tell these people? Like, if I send this out, do I send them my information so that they can W-2 me, or should I be W-9ing my company?
Right.
Like, these are things that I came from a corporate background. I have a business degree and a computer science degree. I was a geek in this world already. So I was so far advanced in this world of learning how to tie in. What if you're an amazing photographer that doesn't know how to use a Mac or a IBM laptop? It doesn't matter which one you're using. But my point is, if you're not that great in Windows, what are you doing today? If you're not that great in Premiere or Photoshop or otherwise, you've only got this much of it. Anybody can pick up a camera. Right. I tell everybody asks me all the time, what's the best camera in the world? The one you have with you.
Right. Yeah.
The one you have with you is always going to be the best camera in the world, whether that be the Polaroid around your neck or your iPhone, most likely. And again, it's still just that easy that any one of us sitting at this table could show somebody how to take a better picture on their iPhone right now than they ever have, because they're not thinking about it like a photog. They're not thinking about, let me see the triangle. Where's this at? Let me put this in the world. It's Fibonacci world. Let's get it right. You know what I mean? But it's so crazy because the younger creators, I think there's so much of that they could benefit from. And that's why so many of these people on YouTube and others are making killings by setting this type of standard of like, here's what you should learn about what you're doing in there. How do you get this next gig? And I think that's one of the things. Once that confidence level, though, is in place, the rest of the stuff starts coming, right? Yeah. None of us work well. I can guarantee you that here at the table, make the assumption, if we don't have a gig next week and we reach out, most likely, if I don't book something within that first couple days or first couple hours of that week, I will sit in a depressive mode of anti-anxiety for the rest of the week and most likely just binge watch shit and not do a damn thing. Like, I mean, you can quickly end up on the opposite side of the scale where people are like, you're so outgoing, you're so out there. The reverse is, if there's not a gig, if there's not something to do, bro, I'm the first person that might not pull the covers back out of my, off my head in the bed. I'm like, I have a hard time then getting it. It starts to cripple. Almost
need that thing to look forward to get you out of bed. You need
something, right? It's that crazy because we operate on that 3%, but there's 90% of it that's just that constant thing we put us back into. Yeah. Like, everybody's like, oh, you got that gig and you're out. And you're like, and therefore I'm on to the next one. It's the crush, the climb that we actually are addicted to, right? We're not addicted to delivering the product. Hustling. Yeah, the hustle's the addiction. The product, once it's done, you're like,
was the gateway drug to the... Photography was the gateway drug to becoming addicted to hustling and just
I think that's
forward.
It. Yeah, people are always like, man, you get to go a million cool places. I'm like, nope, my camera goes everywhere. And I'm lucky enough to follow it. You know what I mean? Like, that's really it. And now I do it on that same side. Again, albeit what the camera is, that's the case with the drones. You know what I mean? It's just for me now at that rate where I've got drones that cost more than most people's cars. You know what I mean? That we fly in the regular, but what do you do with them afterwards? Some of these LiDAR projects I'm talking about, like I scanned the Allegiant Stadium right before the Pro Bowl last year. Got a big gig to scan Allegiant Stadium in a LiDAR spot. It took me like 3.5 days, 3 trips, working it out with Metro, with FAA, with the local, Allegiant staff, everything else to fly and create this 3D model out there, which was the model that was eventually used for that crazy zombie movie that they did here, Takeover Vegas.
Oh, Army of the Dead.
Army of the Dead.
Dude, so they used my wife's favorite movie.
So they used that in that spot for part of that engine to have like a real life spot on there. And that's how they did. They actually flew LiDAR from a helicopter, which is usually how it's done.
Yeah.
They flew LiDAR from a helicopter and did the whole city, which is why if you watch that as a Vegas person, you're like,
it's pretty
dude,
accurate.
that's dead on balls right there. Like, I don't know how they did that, but that's actually right there.
Yeah.
And it's because they created that world with that half a centimeter accuracy that I'm telling you about. And then they just fill in the rest in a gaming engine, but then it doesn't matter because it's accurate. You turn off Koval and you're like, oh shit, that's like really right there.
No, we watched it and did the same pause and be like, oh no,
like,
that's
dude,
true.
They were true to fact. Well, it's because they use that LiDAR scan, which is so crazy on there. And I think that's one of those big deals. So I'm not looking forward to 2024, the end of 2024, when I have to renegotiate that other electrical contract. May not be as cool.
Yeah, that
but
5-year deal.
Since then, we've done some great, cool stuff, man. I did a big LiDAR project last year down in Guyana, in South America, which is amazing. They have I've now created a model that works in that we can LiDAR like a shoreline and create a 5-year model to show where the deterioration of the shoreline is and where a city or anybody else would have to be concerned with that. And I spent like 6 months last year going back and forth to Cape Canaveral and flying all of the intracoastal around Cape Canaveral, all around space, the Space Center, et cetera, that area.
Yeah.
Because it's got some of the closest just water levels, sandbars, and islands to a lot of South American areas and other stuff on there. And then we use that modeling to go down there. A place, for example, like Guyana, Georgetown, that area is getting blasted, and it's huge farmlands, their main import-export up through that area. And they're getting blasted now. They're losing like 5 to 7 inches of land every year.
Yeah, is it, where is it at? It's like, is it somewhere in Italy that's like same thing? It's like the water level's like now creeping into like
right, and it's coming to the point where now they have like if they have any tide changes, they get these crashing waves that come 2-3 blocks into the city, and then the city's like sinking. The problem that they've got in Guyana area is that it's mostly farmland. So a lot of people that have the coastland, like this is they're losing their livelihood. Actual land. Yeah. Their livelihood's going away through there. So we did a 5-year model, which will probably be ongoing. I'll probably have to go back once every year until then. And then it's a great spot, though, ultimately, where this model shows you here's the specific areas where showing using an AI model based on scans we took here and then giving it facts from the past 7 to 10 years of what you've been losing. Here's the areas that because they've got limited resources, we're able to point towards the areas they should be focusing all their resources on. Gotcha. This is your next area. 2 years from now, this area right here is going to be your worst because the mangroves are going to wash out. You should go, and now they're proactively able to plant new mangroves, trying to create different ways to kind of go with that. So again, where the drone technology thing takes us, I have no idea. But I'm telling you right now, most people are like, yeah, I got into drones 2 years ago. I'm doing this. I'm telling you, I'm almost at my 10-year marker, and they weren't even a thing. And it's funny because people are always like, oh, I do drones, and I'm like, yeah, I've done a lot of that. I mean, I have cinematography, I got IMDb credits for doing a lot of movie work and the stuff over there. I've got 3 drones that are Netflix certified already. We've done some gigs with that. I just never found a great way to make that the primary without being in the film industry, which is a thing. Like some of my good buddies, Beverly Hills Aerials, shout out to them, and some other stuff like that. Like they've made a very specific niche and are doing great in that, but without the film industry and that money on there, the rest of it's kind of a race to the bottom. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like even drone photography for real estate, I used to get paid $200 to do an amazing mansion that took me 45 minutes to fly.
Right.
And nowadays that type of gig's out there, is 75 or $100. Like it's a race to the bottom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, these things race to the bottom. Well, it's because everybody can go to Best Buy and just pick up a Mavic 2 or 3 or whatever.
Oh, shit. See, I thought it was the opposite.
Well, and there's big real estate companies, too, that will, it costs like $100 to get your house photographed, and then they pay the person, $25 a house. And
so I'm a Zillow certified photographer. I'm an Airbnb certified photographer, and all this. Like, dude, they pay $60 a house. You know what I mean? Like I used to do several $100s for a spot, and I've got a very crazy bracketed technique I created that's like a 7 to 9 bracket created. I make sure there's window pulls you can see inside, outside. I was very meticulous in my real estate world, but they just don't pay for that shit anymore.
Yeah.
It's a race to the bottom. Many of those things are. So is the drone market that we're working in for the inspections because, well, for 5 reasons. Number one, the AI keeps getting better, so we're really close to most of that stuff being automated. Not automated completely, but the difference of a 3-person team doing 6 structures or a 3-person team that just launches their drone and basically just watches it do its work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It becomes more of a nanny thing than an operator.
Supervisor.
Yeah. I mean, and eventually, and that's the race to the bottom in that world. And again, FEMA world, even for that, like $1,500 days just 2 years ago. You know what I mean? And I still... Thank you, FEMA. Shout out for my monthly allowance that I still get just to stay on. This hurricane last month in San Diego, I was shitting the bed the whole time. Like, I don't want to go, man. Like, I'm watching the news every day. It's like, I can't believe that's happening. I'm like, any moment the bat phone rings. You know what I mean? Like,
I had to race it home from LA that Sunday morning.
Bro, so I mean, according to that contract, I have 24 hours to mobilize and be in wherever they drop me a pin. You know what I mean? Like, shit. For that, by the way, they pay a handsome ransom every month. That's
of course. Yeah, convenience fee.
Thank you. My Tesla appreciates that. You know what I mean? Like, but ultimately, again, all of that stuff's a race to the bottom. So that's why I'm always like trying to reinvent that as well, man. And that's just one of the 2. Like I said, we got other spots. The Kicks by Self-Made brand was created by accident. Yeah. I'm a sneakerhead like crazy. I got a shit ton of sneakers in the collection. Been collecting for 15 years.
Yeah, tell us what you were telling us earlier. How many do you have on display currently in your home?
Yeah, it's a couple hundred for sure. Yeah, and I changed some of those out, but a lot of them are whatever. I mean, I have some I have Dior highs and lows that I bought at like retail that are now worth $8,000 and $6,000 respectively.
Dude,
you know what I mean? Like I paid
for a pair of shoes.
Yeah, I paid a G for them at the time. People are like, "You're a fucking idiot." You know what I mean? I'm like, "That's funny." I laugh right now and pull up StockX. Like, look, bro.
Yeah,
$8,000.
Yeah, I mean, I could buy a house with what I got on the wall for sure. That's my wife reminds me all the time too. She's like,
"What's that? What's your address?"
Yeah, she's like, "Hey, what's up?" I have to watch for my streaming too. I tell everybody else like, "Don't come here. I'm not the one. I'm not. If I see you in my ring before you knock, just know." So the crazy part about the brand that started there is I had started drawing some stuff during COVID, man. You know, and COVID was a weird thing for any creative, obviously.
So you're moving into your fourth life almost.
That was almost a fourth
sneakers,
life, right?
Drones.
Yeah.
You had your IT.
The IT corporate.
Yeah, the IT corporate run, and then a brand called Kicks by Self-Made, which again everything falls back to my self-made. That's just my own nod to keep going. This is still
fuck the man.
This is still you. Yeah, fuck the man. I am the man.
You are. I was gonna say you are the man.
I've become the man. Assume the man instead of fuck the man. It should be that. It should be assume the man, which is the thing. The self-made brand was crazy, bro. I got into this. I saw where the live streaming selling was kind of going during the end of COVID.
Yeah, it was so popular.
It was so popular, and I was like, how is this a thing? I felt like a good salesperson in these worlds, and I'm like, this again, though, anything that falls back where the technical aspect starts to be a thing, I'm intrigued. I'm like, there's something here. There's somehow, how do you get into this? What's the back end? Maybe there's money in the app and the algorithms and whatever that is. And sneakers, man. So I've always kind of resold sneakers, but more on a don't get high off your own supply type of world. You know what I mean? Like, why would I pay for that new pair of sneakers if I could buy 3 pairs, make everybody else pay more for their 2 pairs, and then my pair was free. Right? So that was always the concept. That's yeah. I mean, if you sold weed as a kid, that's what the same game right there. Like, I like to smoke, and that's the game plan. We live in a different world now. But I'm just saying. So that was the kind of push. But I wanted to sell, but the resale market, again, is a dying breed, man. So many great people. I was great friends, luckily been great friends for the past couple of years with JC at Urban Necessities, an amazing resource, obviously, to have in this game. He's the GOAT, the god of all of it. Right. I'd run into several of these guys, became pretty close with back and forth with the shoe surgeon, saw some of these other things, became super close with my buddy who runs the San Diego Custom Footwear, who's a Monster Energy sponsored footwear creator, and they actually run classes every month on how to get into that. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna see if I can take the resale game up a little bit. So I reached out. I had done some work with Monster, some other stuff in the past on the concert side. I said, can you get me in touch with this guy? I want to get in one of those classes. And I got in. I took a 10-day boot camp on learning how to make a shoe from nothing.
Damn.
Like from nothing. You guys talked with Jordan about doing patterns and things like that. So I learned how to cut my own patterns, how to create my own patterns, how to use these different tools that were basically for cobblers. You know what I mean? For people who made shoes back then. They had no idea. Cobblers, and all I wanted to do was make some damn money. Travis Scott looking Nikes and some money. And so I went to school, learned how to make these things. I started doing some crazy customs, just like even Jordan mentioned, is that, the paint game is where it was at, but it's just so painstaking. There's not big money in it. Right. But there was great money in the quick customization side. So I started doing that and try and live stream with Whatnot, which was a great streaming option at that time. Started pushing some more options out to eBay and things like that, really just to see what was out there. Right. I wasn't spending too much time out for this, but I was like, there's a custom market for sure. And then somebody was like, what you should do is why don't you create a logo? This way everybody knows it's your thing. Okay. And I was like, that's great. I need to create something. So I'll create this Kicks logo with a Z, of course, because everything with a Z. And we'll see where it goes. We'll see what happened. And then I got back into again, crazy airbrusher back in the day. Used to be one of my fun things. I used to airbrush motorcycles, and that was a thing. Big time airbrush jobs, crazy realism style of airbrushing, which was always cool because I think my photography eye always matched that I could also output. Right. I could see there somehow using an airbrush medium. I was taught how to do it by a very good buddy of mine. and ultimately it was a fella. I just didn't use it in years though. So I'm like, maybe I get back into sketching and drawing in today's world. And in today's world, maybe you break open a tablet.
Yep.
That's a whole different game, bro.
Procreate.
Tools like Procreate changed the game, bro.
Yeah.
So I started sketching. I knew nothing about like colorization in that world or anything else, but I could still sketch outlines like a mad fool. So I sketched my very first ever design, which is now known as the Lost and Found, which is the Nike Jordan 1 High, red, white, and black Chicago version, which eventually was re-released as the Lost and Found just 7 months after I redrew it.
Right.
Crazy timing that they helped my marketing plan like that, which I had no clue. But I drew that one, and bro, it came out so crazy cool with the Kicks by Self-Made into the thing and everything else that I was like, this is definitely my logo. Also, this is definitely what I should sell.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Why didn't I think about this? I sent it immediately to a guy that I met off of Upwork. As a digital, illustrator, and I taught, listen, I need to learn or use somebody to create these amazing colorizations. I just didn't know how to color these things that it was realism. Like, and he taught me some crazy stuff, but then really did such a bang up job that I just started sketching more stuff instead of like, and it was so easy because I'm basically saying, copy this shoe.
Right.
I'm using a shoe, a very specific. Here's a Travis Scott Cactus Jack Air Max.
Right.
This is what it looks like. These are the colors. Match these colors. Here's my sketch. The thing that I did was I created, I was thinking Sneakerheads, right? So originally that was the brand name. Sneakerheads with a Z at the end.
Okay, Sneakerheads at the Z.
Yep, that was the original concept. And the Kicks thing was just shorter, but I was like, how do I make this for true blown sneakerheads? Like people that are geeks like me, not only do you wear the sneakers, but you probably also wear Supreme. You probably are also into it's just a thing, right? And I didn't want to be one specific brand or anything else. No, I wanted to carve a brand out of it so that even if the resale wasn't doing what I wanted it to, that maybe there was a secondary option. So I created each one of these designs to create the sneakers to look like an animal head. I gave them all teeth and a mouth and made them all heads. Right. So that the sneaker heads was basically that. I could create these well-known branded sneakers, and each one then became a sneaker head themselves. And I was originally thinking, like, maybe I'm just going to make like this family of these characters. Right. What I didn't realize until I first started selling them was that people wanted it on everything. Like, I was just selling art prints, bro. I mean, I had my Pro 200 at the house was printing 13 by 19s, and I was selling art prints. Like, look at this on a photo paper. Yeah. Like, so cool. And I can frame it for you. And I'll sign it for you, and whatever the hell you want to do. And people are like, do I need it on a shirt or a hoodie or a jacket or a bag or like anything. And I was like, well, that's a thing. Okay. So I reached out to a good buddy of mine that I'd known for years back in Florida he's been doing a print company, t-shirt print company for as long as I can even think back. Right. And he helped me start doing some of these designs in a direct to garment world, which was so much nicer a product. And we were using these beautiful next level t-shirts that were comfortable. And it was like, I was super excited where it was going. It was inexpensive. We were able to put some things out pretty great. And I started selling shirts of the design. Of the sneaker designs. Which really started blowing up. And then I realized, okay, I don't need to make a specific subset of characters. What I need to do is copy, if you will, whatever the hottest, newest drop is. Because the people that can't get that $1,000 Travis Scott are not going to spend. That guy's cool to spend $25 on a shirt. Of that same shoe. Right? Yeah. Or, God forbid, it is the guy who's got the shoe. He definitely has to own it. He needs to own it all. He wants the stickers. He wants the cups. He wants all of it through there. And then the Whatnot live streaming started getting crazier. I tied in with Wanted. I tied in with a couple of these other companies. Amazon started live streaming. eBay started live streaming. Most people don't even know that they do that yet. I did not know that. So Amazon and eBay are about to launch a huge process that'll go crazy in January 1. Like live streaming, selling auctions for products. Through Amazon? Through Amazon, bro. Wow. And eBay live. I can see eBay, but... eBay too. eBay, changes the entire, monetized structure of how eBay works, because now you're live selling it. And I do that at live auctions. Most of my gear I start at $1. So people are like, how much for one of your shirts? Well, if you go on my website, I have a set price. But if you come on one of my live auctions, you could win one for $1. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen, but you could win. You could win one for
one person, one bid.
But it's by $1. A lot of them I even do sudden death, where it's like you have 30 seconds. Whoever the last person to bid is wins. I don't even because I do volume. You know what I mean? Volume.
Right.
So I had no idea that would blow up the way it is. So to date now, I just did 18 months since I started my first ever stream. It's been 18 months since I did my first ever live stream with that. In 18 months' time, I've created 32 different designs, 32 different character designs.
Gotcha.
We've sold 11,000 T-shirts.
Holy shit.
I've sold 350 different bags, and I say that like duffel bags or otherwise from there, and a little over 3,000 hoodies.
Damn.
We've also I do shorts, I do whatever my blank supply company will send me.
Right,
we can print in-house now. Thing. So, and I have a direct-to-film printer now. I have like several presses, the whole stuff, all set up at the house. So all this is manufactured in-house now, 100%. I've got my costs down super low, and most of these I sell on live streaming. Like people can easily cop one of my T-shirts for $15 to $20 a piece. Super comfortable, custom tag printed on the inside, custom prints on either front or back, and we've done a crazy amount of business with that to the point where now it needs 2 to 3 full-time employees just to keep running.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say,
there's how the fuck.
Yeah, how the fuck are you?
I do a lot of it my own still. So the crazy part is during that process,
What do you mean the crazy part? It's all crazy.
It's all crazy. I mean, you guys listen. I mean, we created some fun stuff today. The aura. Anybody that's watching this for the first time, I'm either the most interesting person in the world or the most boring. I don't know which one it is, but I'm all over the place. Again, ADHD can work to your benefit.
Yeah, fuck, he's living proof right here.
So, and the one other product that I created in there that really blew up is, this sounds so weird when I say it, but sneaker candles.
Sneaker candles?
Okay.
Candles. So I had no idea this would work.
I think I've seen like a Jordan 1 candle.
Yeah, because Mike posted a thing. Mike Perez posted, like a candle that was
maybe even Jordan posted something.
I don't know about Jordan, but I just saw Mike Perez,
So, take 3D Scan World, take all this other stuff. I was like, technology based. There's something here.
Yeah.
I started 3D scan. I've had a 3D scanner for a couple years. Mm-hmm. A slew of 3D printers. I was always big into prototyping with that or wherever else. And as this brand for Kicks Myself Made was kind of growing, I'm like, there's another method here. Mm-hmm. There's something else. I got to branch more than just T-shirts because, again, everything in my world is a race to the bottom. So and that's my deal. It's like I get in and get out. That's why it's so funny. People are like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Everything until it's not anymore." Yeah. And then I drop it. That's the problem. Too many people tie onto this shit forever and hold on to it. Oh, it's my dream. No, it's not. Drop it. It's dead. Yeah. Move on. Or create a new product inside of that with the same customer base. For me, I was like, how do I create something new inside of there? And I went to a sneaker con a year ago now. And somebody was selling sneaker candles there. Mm-hmm. There's one company out of California that makes a Jordan 1 High and a Air Force 1. They do them in straight white wax. They're not terribly detailed. They're detailed enough that you can tell what it is. And man, they had a price tag on these things for $90, bro. Oh, and I was like, I fucking make candles now. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So the crazy part I did is I'm like, let me see where this tech works. So I started taking a couple of my Grail style of sneakers and said, well, what if I scan this in 3D world? Maybe I can print, and I spent like 3 months. Like I was printing a shit ton of, like, maybe I could sell these, I could chrome plate them, maybe they'd be like a desktop thing people would love. The key about sneakerheads is, like with anything else, right? I mean, how easy is, as photographers, right? I mean, if you come up with a new backdrop I don't need, I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you come up with a tripod that also does this, I'm going to buy it.
Dude, even down to like stupid shit. I've seen a few ads, they have like custom rugs that'd be like a film canister, and I was like,
I need that.
I have a rug in my room. I don't need it, but like I could have like a Kodak.
It could be Kodak.
Dude, like,
I need that.
I'm now that person.
Everybody needs a Polaroid, refrigerator in their office. Like, there's some of that stuff where you just look at it, and you're like, dude, I need that. So I was trying to really tap into that with the sneakerheads thing. So just to bring that all in wraps, I was like, anything that I make in there, once I've got an active audience. And the crazy part about the brand is that because of the live streaming, I built a following. Like on Whatnot, for example, I have 17,000 followers. That get notified every time. If I even do a pop-up right now.
Notifies
on
them.
the iPhone, they're going to get notified. And most are going to try to come in. Like, ultimately, I'll end up with 100, 200 in every live stream. Mm-hmm. That's what suffices the $1 starts on things, because I create these bidding wars.
Yeah.
Even though you know I'm going to sell another one of those shirts in any one of your sizes directly following, you want that one right now. Mm. And then I'm smart enough that I create that off. I'm only going to sell 5 of these today.
Gotcha.
And then I also retire my images now. So like, hey guys, this image is only available for another 3 months. It creates the same want that we as sneakerheads are used to dealing with because
limited
Nike's
supply.
been fucking with us forever. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we drop it here and haha, you can't get it.
Yeah.
And your bot doesn't get it and this doesn't get it. Now you could go buy it from Jay for $1,700. It was $90 yesterday. But you know what I mean? So the sneaker candle world. So I started 3D scanning some of these. Couldn't figure out what to do. I printed a bunch of them, wasted a bunch of money, just went crazy. I'm like, there's nothing here yet. I made one of a Jordan 1 high that was so detailed in the 3D scan that I was like, I am going to make this work in something.
Yeah.
I created a perfect 3D thing. I ended up sending it to a company to print it out for me in resin. And they sent it back to me. It was gorgeous. It was like, I couldn't even believe that this was like something I was holding. And they had created it for me in the 7-inch size that I loved. And I was like, okay, so if I can't recreate these on the regular, on the 3D or send to them, it was costly to make that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this won't work, but I can mold it. So I did. I'd done a bunch of molding parts in the past in my motorcycle world. The one thing we dropped off on there, we won't get into. But I was big into making parts at that time. I used to make hand levers and stuff like that. And we would pre-prototype and then make molds, create the stuff. And then I'd send it to China and get 1 million of them made. And then that was the case. So I basically decided, hey, we'll make these 3D scans of an actual shoe. The actual shoe, brand new in the box, 3D scanned. I'll take the 3D scan. I'll create a 3D print. And then I'll reverse engineer that by creating a mold of the 3D print. Because the 3D prints are expensive to make.
Right, so you're going to sell
expensive
that.
To modify. And then immediately I started making epoxy resin molds of them. Which was not as costly. And then I made a little light base, and I started making these desktop lamps. They were an LED-based lamp. I could make them different colors, and it was a light up of a Jordan 1. These people were going crazy, bro.
Right.
$50, $60 they're selling for. They take me about $4 in materials to make now that I've made the molds, but it's epoxy, bro. You need a warehouse doing that. I was doing this shit in my house, making like 10 epoxy sneakers a night. You come down in the morning, you're like, just
fucking
I'm
dying.
You got like full-blown masks on the whole thing. And then I went to that sneaker con and, you know, and I saw the candle thing. And like a month later it clicked. And I'm like, wax.
You just pour wax into it.
I pour wax in it. I put a fucking wick in it.
Yep.
And it's game on. I have 35 molds now of specific shoes that are crazy. I sell candles galore on there. Usually, and I have now, it's crazy because I have like, there's 4 places here in town that carry them. And then I have like 10 streamers that
carry your candles?
Carry my candles, also sell my brand of shirts. So now the easier part is I'm slowly trying to move that to where I don't have the time to always be streaming or otherwise. But if I can just be the manufacturer distributor thereof, and other people are slinging my shit, then amen to that. The sneaker candle game has gone crazy. I produce 400 to 500 candles a week right now.
Holy shit!
You personally are doing them?
Personally,
dude.
So the top of my kitchen, guys, I have like seven and a half quart things that just have different colors of wax all day long, and it's like my cool little cool off. Whenever I come back home or anything else, I'm like, you know what? I'll just
whenever he's cooling off from working, he does more work.
I usually jerk off, but
you know what? I found that to be great too, but I want to make money at that somehow. If there's a way, we'll find it.
Fuck, literally.
So
dude.
Listen, I'm sorry. This is a long one, and I apologize.
You're good on.
That's good. I'm just saying. There's a lot to go in on there. I'm a multifaceted weirdo.
Sure,
right?
are,
fucking
dude.
Weirdo. All that, like the crazy part is when I heard like Jordan, you guys had him on. He's like, it's such a loaded question when somebody's like, because you get to a point where you're like, dude, I don't want to. It's almost boring to tell you. Like I'm not really out here to just toot my shit on what I'm doing. But it's impossible to tell somebody in passing in the wind like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm a photographer.
Yeah.
That's it. That's really it. I'm a photographer.
You could have said that, and then even then.
So how do you, with all of these awesome ideas and all these different facets that you like to do creatively and to make money financially, how do you find a work-life balance between all of it?
Bro, it's so weird. I mean, I know
you have a family.
I do, and you know what? My wife and I have been together now 8 years, and absolutely, we are emotionally and physically the polar opposites, which always works terrifically. But work-wise, drive-wise, 100% exactly alike.
Okay.
She's been laser focused since the day I met her on this path to become a mental health counselor. Through her associates, through her bachelor's, through her master's, and now she's 2 years in for her towards her PhD in that spot. And in just the last year, we've opened her private practice here in town.
Dude, nice.
And she focuses on children, which is great. So she focuses on a lot of children. I mean, her youngest clients are 4,
right?
5, going through maybe divorce. in today's world, right, a lot of these kids are dealing with hormonal issues, dealing with identifying properly, a lot of things in today's world that, truthfully, as my age bracket, as my stuff, I don't even get half of this stuff. I've learned more in the past couple of years that goes through. I'm open to all that stuff there, but she works a crazy life herself. And that's kind of the passing in the wind is how that works, because I travel nonstop. You know what I mean? Just last year, again, like, I mean, I love Vegas, but I still did 110,000 in the air last year. You know what I mean? Like,
damn.
I stay on an airplane.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of that, thankful, shout out to the UFC and a lot of other stuff like that. But I travel because there's not a gig anywhere else. I'm just like you. It's like, dude, there's a gig in San Diego tomorrow. I got a Frontier Fly All You Can pass, bro.
Right.
I'm on a plane. Where are you going tomorrow? I'm working in LA. You know, it's a run. I'm working Sunday at the SoFi Stadium. I'm shooting the Raiders game in SoFi on Sunday. That's one of those things where people are like, how do you find time to get with them? Like, I jump on that's one of the biggest draws to Vegas.
Yeah.
Vegas is such a jumping hub.
Yeah.
You can get to anywhere. You can easily work today at Amazon Corporate in Seattle. Come back tonight. You know what I mean? You can work in San Fran and San Diego and LA and Phoenix. And I do that type of crap all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting tired of doing it, but ultimately, like,
Yeah.
that's what opened up the other markets, which eventually got me the right eyes, you know, to do work direct with such great names and work with that and get into some of the other wire services and do stuff like that and build these libraries, which is really the key. But,
now,
it's crazy.
real
It's
quick,
crazy
talk to me about that. What is a wire service, or what does that entail?
So news wire service, right? So the world, obviously, anybody in today's world, which is kind of crazy because, again, 10 years ago, that news wire services were just that. They were just used for local newspapers, national newspapers, and anybody that wanted to write a story. But in today's world, it's mostly bloggers, websites, and news covering media sites. Let's say that as it is. However, you know, they've got to buy pictures. And a lot of people, if they're writing their stories or anything else, they're visiting a lot of these sporting events or entertainment events as a writer, reporter. And then most companies have deals with Getty Images, with AP, with Alamy, all these other companies to basically buy photos when they need to use them. So the original world, which we've all played in and dabbled in, of, you know, Shutterstock, iStock, things like that, where it's like, well, people need royalty-free images. Yeah. So the royalty-free image thing continues down that path all the way up to what you see on the front cover of the New York Times every day, right? Those are royalty. Most people don't have staffers anymore that can do that. Yeah. And we're such a broad base anymore. There's something happening here in Vegas sevenfold every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's impossible for everybody to cover all of it. And if you were a writer, maybe you write about all the above. You use a company like, let's use the Review Journal, for example. Like, they have staff photographers like crazy, but they also have to use a shit ton of Associated Press, Getty. And so it's just too much content to capture all of it just for purposes of using that. So news wires are, depends on how you do that. You either can buy individually from them, or a lot of companies that use them ongoing, have, membership services where they get a certain amount of downloads, et cetera, et cetera. So a supplier of sorts to that type of company is definitely a huge portion of, where a photojournalist falls into the world, right? So a photojournalist does not necessarily write anything but captions. You know what I mean? And most people don't realize the type of work that goes into that. I always say, if it takes you an hour to photograph that, it takes you 6 to submit those. Right. You know what I mean? So most people don't realize, like, every UFC event I ever do, like, those pictures, by the time the last fight ends and I leave the cage, I've delivered all my photos. Yeah. People are like, oh, you go home and edit. You do. I'm like, there's no editing, bro. Right. Yeah. There's no time. Camera, by the time I get back to the hotel, I'm reading my pictures in a newspaper article. You know what I mean? You're seeing them there. That world only works with the time to market. Right. So, I've been pretty blessed that a lot of my stuff in the MMA and combat world has been tied with a Brazilian outlet for about 4.5 years. AG, right? Okay. So, yeah, AG has been one of my biggest ties. I've done a lot of work with PX Images as well, which is another Brazilian company.
We were doing a little research.
Yeah, for sure. So, and those have been my ties to most all boxing, most all everything from there. And again, when I first moved to Vegas, like, I tied in great with some of those guys. I shot like a year and a half just following TMT around, bro. I shot nonstop Mayweather stuff, everything I could get access to. And at that time, Mayweather was still doing crazy little bouts over here. Yeah. We're going to be at Santa Fe Station, and we're going to be at, like, wherever you were at, these crazy little places around town. And the access that I could get was crazy. And then, at that time, we started reaching out to some of these Brazilian, European wires from there, where a lot of the stuff people don't realize, like Getty North America doesn't supply pictures to Poland,
Right.
right? So I'm like, well,
There's a market.
They need pictures.
There's a hole
you know
that
what I
you
mean?
can
Like
fill. Yeah.
Czechoslovakia has newspapers. You know what I mean? Russia reads newspapers.
Yeah, Russia reads.
There's a whole nother version of Yahoo in China. You know what I mean? Like, what are
Yeah.
we doing? So once I realized that having an agent and a newswire service outside the country would start giving me access to inside the country stuff, I really pushed that hard, man. It just went crazy. And that, you know, looking back on it, knock on wood, is probably the tie to everything that is today. And now I do shoot direct for Associated Press. I do shoot direct for Getty Images. I do shoot direct for ESPN. I do shoot direct for UOL. And UOL, like, is my constant now. So most of what I shoot for
What does that stand
UFC
for?
is UOL. And UOL's it's Universal Online something is the breakdown, but it's a large. It's probably what I would say the Brazilian equivalent of like a USA Today.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so very, very large. It's their largest
News publication.
throughout the entire country. And most people, again, you think Brazil, and they're like, yeah, Rio, I've seen Fast and Furious. You're like, dude, you know how big Brazil is?
Yeah.
I mean, you can fit America inside of it.
Yeah, it's
you know,
huge.
it's one of those things when people are like this. So when we talk about that market, it's humongous.
Right.
And UOL is a UFC partner.
Okay.
Unlike a media news organization such as USA Today or otherwise, they're an actual partner with UFC, which is where my love has been of that. That's why I get the amazing opportunity to work a lot of events that most people don't.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and then I always give people like JB and stuff like that hell all the time where I'm like, you know, I shoot more than
JB, you mean Jeff Patari?
JB, Jeff Patari in the house. But I always give hell on there. Chris Unger, same run. I'm like, so they alternate, you know, they do different ones. But like, I mean, Madison Square Garden this year will be my 50th pay-per-view that I've covered for that.
Just in this calendar year?
No, just since doing pay-per-views for them. But
gotcha.
I've done over 300 events, you know, what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even during COVID, right? Shout out to the UFC and those 110 COVID tests that I had to take in that 1 year, by the way. But when everybody else wasn't shooting, we were
there,
shooting.
yeah.
We shot at the Apex. I shoot the Apex every week.
Yeah, you're
You know what I mean?
literally
It's only
shooting
1 week a month that we don't shoot there, and then we travel somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of the international stuff outside there just because it takes me away from too much of my other work.
Right.
I love to jump on those games. I'm not against those, and I'll do some more moving into next year as we run through that. But yeah, that's a beauty part, and that's where the Newswire service has been on there, which again led me to some of the stuff I get to do here locally. And I mean, shooting UNLV's home game against Hawaii this Saturday for Getty. You know,
Nice.
and I get some great Getty love with aces, with a lot of fill-ins. You know what I mean? Because this market here just continues to explode. You know what I mean?
I feel like we're all in like pretty good positions for like this market to blow.
Yeah, and it's absolutely one of those things. It's the best thing that I love about this market and the people obviously that are in it. I mean, obviously yourselves as well included in there, is just the fact that there's a different level. I get so many people that I've got 2 or 3 guys that I'm kind of mentoring through that world right now. I'm bringing them in that are learning photography or learning how to sell photography.
Right.
And you know, one of the things that I get asked all the time is like, well, how do you? Florida had me stuck in this very step on your brother's face to get to the next level. If you want to make it in Florida,
you're gonna have to stab some backs.
you have to take him out.
Stab in the back.
Yeah, I have to get your job. So when I mean to the point where like I still to this day, I just had somebody shoot. As a matter of fact, I still do a lot of news wire service in Florida, so I send photogs contract all over the place.
Right, that are already
I just
there.
sent a guy to shoot Wu-Tang and Nas in Jacksonville
Nice.
last Friday. I've personally shot them before. It's a great setup, but I've got great ties. I have a big contract with iHeart. I still sell a lot of stuff out in that area for iHeart. That is never funny. You know what I mean? But it's funny because a lot of these guys reach out and they're like, dude, how do you get past it? The competition on that level is crazy. But even with those guys still today, I don't even forward them emails. Like I will screenshot the email with the data and send it to them so that they don't have the contact of who it came from. Because Florida will literally bite your shit so quick.
Gotcha.
And
They'll
it's that
cut you out.
mentality. Yeah. And it's because this job is just not as much going on. There's not as much work, and therefore it's you know, fight or famine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they get in that way. I've loved that about the West Coast since the day I came out here. People are always like, yeah, but how do you deal with the competition? I'm like, bro, competition's a thing out here that happens at the bottom.
With it. I looked to them for advice, and I
the competition here is more a collab opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we can't get to all of it.
Right.
We can't. It's no different than me tagging him. We're working same deals, and I'm like, bro, I gotta come and shoot something at the Win. It's been a minute.
Yeah,
I want to do
exactly,
that, bro. I want to come and shoot some in there, and I want to get and shoot a festival. Have you shot them in the past? Yeah, but I don't necessarily have a thing. But listen, that's the deal, though. Is how quick is that to be like, Okay, well, Al's booked. Okay, well, he's got Mike available. I've shot several things for Al. I've shot several things for JB. I've shot for the UFC Direct. I've shot, you know what I mean? Like, those gigs come because of our ties, because of our availability, because of that camaraderie that I feel like we have at this level where it's like, I'm not trying to assume what his business is, but I do know what he does.
Yeah.
And also, he'd be the first one that I would push that business to or find a way inside of that. I'm also a fan of pushing like finder's fees and stuff in through there. Too many people are always trying to take a piece of the puzzle. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to send you, but we're going to keep the client. You know what I mean? I'm going to do whatever. I'm like, no, I'm going to give you the client. I mean, you shoot me a Starbucks card afterwards because you're probably going to make a G. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather tell somebody straight up, and then where does that go from there? If you turn that into something, holler at your boy. Maybe I come back and work something else, or maybe we could sell some drone work in there or something else.
There you go.
There's always ways to tie that back in. So it's crazy because I tell everybody else that competition is a bottom thing. That doesn't happen as you climb the ladders because, and ultimately, I would have never got to here.
I was going to say, there's more. It's an old school way of thinking of like a me versus you type of thing, or everyone in your line of work is competition.
Right.
I've found more like thriving and more opportunities being friends with people or shaking that hand, or like like you said, we're all here for one reason or another. You're getting paid, I'm getting paid, this and that, and then next thing you know, those things come around where, like I said, hey, Louis not available, but maybe Mike is.
Right.
Mike's not available.
It's asinine that a lot of people think like that there's something that you do with your camera that he can't.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, don't be so silly. You know what I mean? Come on, don't blow your own horn. You may be better at the business transaction. You may be better at this. You may be better at the living. You may be better at editing. I'm not saying that there's not ways that differ all of us. But most of the gigs we're talking about are not at that level, right? We're talking about, can you shoot a nightclub tonight? You're like, yes, and I have a flash. Crazy. Can you shoot portraits for this cannabis company of this model? Like, yes.
Can you produce great work? Can you be a good person to work with and around?
Focus on can you be a good person? You know what I mean? Are you a good human? You know what I mean? Is that the thing?
That's one thing that falls short a little bit is like, I know a lot of guys and women that I trust to do a good photo job, but can I trust them to be professional? Can I trust them?
Can I trust them to hold my name in a room I'm not in?
There you go.
That's the question. Is can I trust them to hold why? Or are they just going to be in there? And I still know plenty of those people, bro. But then you put them in a box. I'm not saying I won't use you.
No, totally will.
I just know that I'll never let you meet
specific
PR.
person.
Yeah, because and PR already knows. You know what I mean? Like I've already explained.
Maybe don't send that person again. You know,
but that's the thing. And again, and I'm probably that person on other people's lists because in the thing, you know what I mean? Where it's one of those things. I'm not saying we haven't all had that time to there. Some people. It's funny because a lot of people are just threatened by success, right? And again. Success is so subjective. Like, what is that? I just told you I left an amazing career. Most people would have like still been dying to get into, and I needed to leave because I wasn't cool with me.
Yeah, how many people have told you, well, that's a stupid decision?
Yeah, that's a dumbass decision.
That's a dumb decision you're going to do right there.
You know what I mean? Like,
how old were you when you made that decision?
I was I had just finished off my dirty 30 run. So yeah, I was early 30s right at that run. Which is when you're supposed to already. It's supposed to be like, picket white fence, 1.2 dogs, 2.3 kids. Right. You're supposed to have
2.3.
Yeah, you're supposed to have the American run right then. And I did, bro. I had 9 rental properties, I had houses, but I was in this market. I lost my ass off in the 2008 real estate bubble, and I lost my marriage, I lost my houses, I lost everything because it changed the entire narrative of what we did.
Right,
and we were super smart in a lot of areas and super dumb and naive in a lot of other ones, which is why everything that I've built now and through there since then, I'm like. Each level has I've kind of locked that in. I think about it all as like a Nintendo game where I'm like, but I made it to level 2, so we'll never see level 1 again. You know what I mean? Like back at that time, I wasn't protecting my stance. You know what I mean? Where I can make sure that even if I do fall today, like falling back to level 17 is not that big of a deal. I'm still gonna beat the game. Right. I just don't know how yet. You know what I mean? And that's something I learned, unfortunately, trials and tribulations. That was just there was no other way to figure it out. That's everything, bro. That's how you learn to. There's no parenting book. There's no book on stuff. Colleges, bro. I got an IT degree. They taught me how to use punch cards, y'all. We stopped using punch cards in like 1978. You know what I mean? Like I learned to be a COBOL programmer. Never used that. You know what I mean? Never used COBOL in my life, but it's crazy how that worked out. But yeah, so I think that's one of those things. So the News Wire service is just another great advocate, for an avenue to sell pictures. So if you're a up-and-coming photographer and that's something you looked into, or can't figure out how to find that one specific client that'll use you for an ongoing or something else, I mean, I highly recommend you jump on now. If you're not already submitting photos that you're taking to the likes of Adobe and Getty iStock and all these other stock sites, you know, I mean, I used to use a company, I don't know if they still exist, but a company called Blackbox that used to be out there that was big that I used to use. And Blackbox was like a software agent company where you could upload royalty-free images to Blackbox, and then you could choose which of the 19 other services they sent to. So you would upload one, caption one, send to Blackbox. They may still exist. I believe just a couple years ago.
There's one, and I can't think of the name of it.
That does like that?
It's like a hub for all those.
Yeah, it's like a hub. So then they would, all of a sudden, they would also try to then market out to everything else, which is great because that's the one thing there. If you're busy creating content, you're busy doing this, like, how much time do we have to do that? In the background. Like, you need a full-time agent. I also have a great agent that I tied onto for the entertainment purposes, which is what got me a lot of these IMDb gigs and stuff in LA. I locked in with an agency probably 2.5 years ago that still gets me a lot of gigs, like this United Airlines gig, for example. Like, still to this day, where I still have that concept of like 0 of 0 is nada. You know what I mean? So everybody's like, so you pay this agent 20%? I'm like, I didn't know there was a gig.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, he gave me the gig. And he factored in his 20%. And yeah, I mean, if I can get a gig, and that's where I get a lot of these little things like that bring me to San Diego, to bring me to LA, or whatever else. And it's like, hey, we're looking for a photog to do this rooftop portrait shoot, needs zone lighting, needs this, needs minimum requirements of this. And it's like, hey, if that fits, my phone rings. And he's like, hey, you want it? I don't know. It's a $500 day rate, and they're going to pay for your travel. Like, see ya.
Yeah.
Be there in an hour. What else can we do while I'm there? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and that's the deal. So I highly recommend you look out there. There's plenty of people that do that in the entertainment industry. And again, the stock photos, man, I still get stuff I uploaded in 2005 every once in a while. I get a report from there. It's like somebody in the boardroom used your graph scale picture that you took outside here, or a random picture. I've gotten the opportunity with the drone flying and stuff to be in areas that most people will never see.
Right.
And for me, I get up there and I'm like, yeah, I'm flying a drone here. I'm also taking 100 pictures and videos with the drone, with my camera, and then I'm pumping those up on stock sites because I'm on somebody's private property on a mountain. You'll never get up.
You're not going to get
the cops don't even come up here. This is like, this is his private city. Let him up. You'll never get this view. So that's when the stock sites really tap in. And really, that's all that it is in the photojournalism world. You're really just creating that, except you're doing it based on timed events that are required to be timely. And again, that teaches you that time to market world where it's like, depending on the client, you could have one client like shooting a basketball game for CBS. They're like, I need 25 pictures. Preferably by halftime, so we can put them up. And you're looking up, you're like, oh, I just took that. You know what I mean? Like, and in the meantime, somebody took the time to cut it out, put it on this, put this other backdrop, whatever. The key is learning that rapid,
very fast-paced environment.
It's crazy. Newswire service.
I have another question for you. Sure. I know you shoot a ton of two-parter. I know you have a ton of sports photography experience. What's your favorite sport to shoot? And what's your most memorable sports moment that you got to photograph? I know.
That's a great question.
I saw like one of my favorite photos of yours, and one of the most memorable ones I've noticed was, like the Kamaru Usman knockout of
Masvidal.
I mean, he was so iconic with how wet he was.
Yeah, that was the ESPN MMA Sports Image of the Year, which was amazing. And shout out and thank you very much for that one. Timing, bro. Timing. Just luck, right place, right time. You know the game. There's so many people that are like, what were your settings? What are you doing?
Though. You were prepared for that.
It is. And it's funny because if you look, Chris Unger has an amazing photo set of that same exact thing. He was sitting right next to me, shooting through the cage, the same run. Like
the same sequence.
Very, very, it's almost the exact same sequence. Yeah. Same deal I did with Jeff when Jeff shot the other one for who was it? Tony Ferguson in San Diego when he smush faced him. Jeff's got an iconic version of it, but I do as well. It's run like depends on those are. I did Frankie Edgar.
I was gonna say you have the Frankie Edgar
Simpson photo that went Reddit crazy, and that one I never made a dime on. Isn't that crazy? One that was crazy because we released that thing on Twitter and it went like super viral.
How come you never made?
Because my editor released it on Twitter before we ever put it on the wire. Yeah. It was a run, so I've seen it everywhere. And by the time, it was crazy. That thing's been everywhere. But I love the smush face, man. The punch face thing is definitely one thing for me, which is probably why I love shooting power slap, which is just like the stupidest, most asinine. It's the most asinine shit in the world. It's just, I laugh all the time because, like, again, Italian upbringing right on that spot. I was the little brown kid in an Italian house. Like, I can tell you right now that I still, to this day, my mom and dad have since passed, but I still have family members that, like, if I let another grown-ass man slap me in the face, open-handed, there's still family members I know that would come to beat my ass today. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way you could show up to a family gathering and be like, didn't I see you on TV and you let that
open-handed
man open-hand slap you and you're still here today? Like, if I called my parents back in the day and been like, yeah, I was on that and he slapped me, and they're like, and then what? You
guys got in a fight, right?
Like, yeah, you guys fought that out, right? You met at the park at 3 o'clock, right? Like, how did you handle that? I got brass knuckles. I'll send them. You know what I mean? Like,
what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a slap.
So my favorite sport. I love MMA, bro. I do. I love MMA. Football will always be a fun second. Probably because I'm a forever student. I learn something every football game I shoot. I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Not to say I don't still do that in every MMA setting or anything else, but like I could shoot a UFC pay-per-view on like super autopilot right now, you know what I mean? And like and not just the shooting. Because you never know what's going to happen. But but the workflow. Yeah. The workflow to get my stuff through, to get it to there, to make sure my editors have it, that they're writing active stories, you know, from the fight before while I'm shooting the next one. The fact that my camera, usually I'm FTPing the last fight's photos from my camera while I'm shooting the next fight. Right. Like, I love that workflow that I've created. I forever learn new ones. I just learned a new one from Jeff and the crew, you know, last month with shooting Contender Series, right? And then using that program to network and send it there. I was like, never use that workflow. Use it now. Use it now for a couple different things. Football is like every time I go in, I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know you could do that. Or I'm asking somebody, like, how did you get that shot?
I think there's also more variables, right? Because like in fighting, there's 2 people and you're in that one spot.
There are, and it's quick action. There's no really other options. There's not much options to play. Like
for football, you have free roam, right?
Yeah, you have free reign, which is, you know, again, outside of, you know, depending, it differs from college to pro or whatever else. But yeah, you got a lot more reign. You got a lot more options. And for that reason, I love shooting arena football. I've enjoyed that. I've tried everything we can shoot in here, but MMA still stands at fun. Football, because that was my first sports option.
A little special place in your heart.
It's special forever, and just the tie. I think it's more accessible with the athletes in MMA, which I think is cool, because I've also got to do like the behind the scenes and the camp runs, which you get to do in there. And that gives you a different retrospect towards the whole sport. It's like, once you've shot the tape up and the shadow boxing all morning, the whole other thing, like you're in.
So invested.
You're so invested. You're like, I know this guy. I've shot him at extreme 100 times. I've done that. You know, I mean, I've been to Benihana with them. And
I spent the last 9 days with these people.
Yeah, you spend 9 days with them, and then you see them in another gig, and then of course they're like, and then you realize afterwards, like, he's asking me for pictures. They just literally haven't taken the tape off, and they're like, I need a picture for Instagram. Instagram right now. You know what I mean? You're
fucking
like,
managers.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely MMA world. I mean, the Usman picture is definitely iconic. It's definitely one of my faves, obviously. And it's a 9-shot session, which is funny because there's just one that ultimately made that, and I have that one in a metal print about the size of that TV over there in my living room, and I like so I see it every day.
I bet your house is just like a treasure.
I have
awesome shit.
I'm a huge fan of. So I used to hang a lot of art. I'm a big art collector. I have a lot of like Eschers, a lot of like Dali stuff. Not that I have originals, but I mean, like, I used to be a true prince, and I had a lot of larger homes during my real estate run, and like, you gotta have art, bro, you know what I mean? But I realized after a while it was actually a creative block for me. I highly recommend anybody out there that does not print their art in today's world to print, man. Get a great printer and print pictures, print your own pictures and hang them in your house. Just especially in today's world, like, I've got a great metal print provider that does an amazing job, and I have an entire UFC wall in my house that has 2 belts, and then I have like a bunch of my different stuff, and I have random pictures of Dana, random fighters, and of course that iconic spot, the Frankie Edgar shot, some of the other ones. I actually have digital Netgear boards too that actually change. They're like digital photo albums.
Oh yeah, a little
I have 2 of those that hang up in my living room that you can change that. So I weekly will take like that last week stuff, and
some favorites.
It's the best motivator. For you to come in, sit in your living room at the end of a gig, sit down. I'm still FTPing something here. I'm trying to eat a sandwich that was probably made 7 hours ago. I'm trying to have a drink. Maybe it's going to be alcoholic. You never know. It's whatever. And then you look up, you're like, dude, that was last week. I did just maybe the music's on, right? Like, these type of things matter for me. I get in the car and I'm listening to Lil Wayne leaving the Aces game the other day, and I'm like, yeah, but I just shot him.
Yeah.
Like
shot him at our heart
I was
radio.
just shooting him just then at the halftime show there.
Oh, really?
I also shot him
nice.
he was at the Aces game sitting. I shot him at the Rays thing, shooting, Rick Ross, on a run like that.
Oh, Rick Ross did halftime. Lil Wayne was just there.
Rick Ross did halftime for Sunday, and then Lil Wayne was at the game the other night, Tuesday night's game or whatever. Yeah. Wednesday. When was that? No, Tuesday, right after Contender. I actually went just to shoot Lil Wayne at the halftime.
I fucking would. He's on my bucket list.
I'm like, dude,
he's on my bucket list.
Lil Wayne whore.
Yeah. We watched him on. Dude, it was funny because iHeartRadio was here and he played.
Yeah.
And we were watching on TV. They were live streaming it.
Yeah.
They were live streaming the concert. So we watched Lil Wayne from our bed, which was the same set that he played when we saw him in Phoenix a couple months ago. But still, we're like, cool, fucking laying in our PJs.
It's wheezy, bro. It's wheezy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same with Rick Ross. Like, was his performance amazing? Was he I don't care. It's just the idea that when I started all this, I swore I'd put my camera on anything or anybody that I was ever interested in. So I don't, you live in this world, you work in this world. Eventually, you have to find your own version of not being a fanboy, fangirl. I mean, there's rules of engagement as well. Like, I mean, there's contracts I have in place that say don't take a fucking selfie with these people or you're going to lose your contract. You know what I mean? Like, so it's weird because people are like, well, how do you react? You're meeting these people, or you're doing that. I'm like, you find a professional happiness, but it doesn't mean that sometimes you're not like still that little 8-year-old kid in there. You're like, bro, I mean, come on, bro. Like, I'm a big R&B. I grew up in New York, bro. I'm an R&B hip hop kid growing up that way. Like, the fact that I've gotten to put my lens on Eminem and Lil Wayne and Rick Ross. I have pictures of shooting Post Malone in concert before he had face tattoos, bro.
Nice. I think you just have old ones where he was like Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice run too. Like, it's run.
I think I shot him. I don't know if I made this up, but I'm 99% sure he opened for G-Eazy at
I think we had this conversation
in 2016.
That's so
2017. Dope. But I gotta look for the photos. But
I actually shot him right after he released that song with 21 Savage. And I shot him at a 21 Savage concert.
Oh, wow.
That 21 brought him into. So he was like, he wasn't even in like the opening stages for a lot of these people yet. He really wasn't doing concert runs.
Yeah.
I shot him 2 other times since then, which is kind of crazy that some of these you see multiple times and they're like, how many times have you shot this type of stuff? Like, I did that silly 90s tour. I've shot that like 7 times now. So like, I have an entire library of Vanilla Ice and Flava Flav and, Biz Markie and like these old school, like, again, but stuff that, I mean, I know I'm older, but high school runs, like these are things I had on there. So to get to photograph these people in a professional light at some point is still an amazing thing internally. It builds your confidence, if nothing else. You know what I mean? But I definitely agree in having that art up and having, or even those digital boards, something like that where you can change that up. Or just to print it, just to have piles sometimes, just to flip through. I know you know it all too well. You're still so big into the film run that
Well, those are still digital.
There's something about it tangible, though, right? There's something about holding a tangible photograph or seeing a tangible piece of art print. No different than walking through T-Mobile, right? And seeing all the amazing Al Powers stuff on there and seeing these things through. Like, that's amazing. Every time you stop seeing, I'm like, I was there. There's several of those pictures where I'm like, that's me on the cage right there. But I'm like, dude, what an iconic thing for him to have that permanently emblazoned, there forever for people to see on the wall. And there's just something still so tangible and personable about that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I definitely believe that. Favorite photo though, truthfully, I don't know if I have that.
Well, not even so much a photo. It was more like just a moment.
The moment that got me. I can tell
you. When you're like watching it through your viewfinder and you're like, oh fuck, I got it, and it's also like iconic.
So biggest iconic for me, obviously New York ties growing up. 9/11 was a hard run for me on through there. I lost 3 family members in 9/11. My uncle was one of the firefighters, one of the first on scene from Greenwich Village. I wear a 9/11 tattoo in his honor on my left arm over here with the all gave some gave all run. And I got hired by MSN Brazil to shoot the 20-year anniversary, which was obviously 2 years ago now. And I got to do, it was a crazy gig. It was a crazy gig. They rented a open door helicopter for me to get a bunch of above city shots and some other stuff. So I did like 3 helicopter flights an hour long over New York City, which was just amazing. Yeah. Flying over the Statue of Liberty, like just 30 feet away, and then the towers and all sorts to get all this great content. And then ultimately I had behind the gates access for that. I've shot, I shouldn't say shot, reverse, photographed 3 active presidents, which is pretty amazing. I still have White House press access right now, which is amazing. I've gotten to shoot Trump while he was live in office. I shot George Bush Sr. and Jr. Through that run. And I shot the trail of Trump while he was on the original trail, which was funny because I got to shoot him showing up in his Trump plane and a few other things. But I got the amazing opportunity during that 20-year anniversary, which again is super close to me and my family to begin with. But I got the opportunity to go there, and it was, our current president, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it doesn't matter. We're not making this political. But the point is I got to shoot from the stage as the president got to come there to help read off the names.
Yeah.
So. That's probably my most iconic. Are they my best pictures ever? I don't know. I was a emotional mess during this whole process.
Right. Yeah.
But I was standing on stage, right, with Biden, with Kamala Harris, with seven, Secret Service, this whole thing, like taking pictures on behalf for this MSN push, and it was absolutely just a crazy honor. So that's one of the ones that stands up all the time.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I don't have any of those printed out. I don't run through that because it's like an emotional tie back to that. But what an amazing experience to be able to do. What an amazing opportunity. I have got to photograph in the White House. That's pretty amazing.
Dang,
to be to the White House to do that. Like if it's a thing. I mean, again, not a big political person, but I'm American.
But
that's still
American. And again, that's why I tell everybody, everybody's like, you go to the coolest place. I'm like, my camera gets to go some of the coolest places that I get to tag along. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a hoodlum, bro. I don't, ended up in the White House. You know what I mean? Like I had to stop.
I got no business being in here.
I had to dust off my knees.
Yeah.
I should not be here.
Something doesn't belong here.
I am not. Remember the back of the highlights magazine? They'd be flipping over like, which thing's not? This is me, guy. I am the Where's Waldo in this situation.
Yeah. Spot the image that is different from the other four.
But I'm still always hunting, and I think that's the passion. That's the key. If you still always are looking for that, right? If you still bring out your cameras at a UFC event, even if it's an Aviators baseball game,
right.
Every time I have that same concept, we're like, this is the one. Mm-hmm. Like the next banger, right? I want it. Whatever it is. I don't even know what it is. Maybe it's using a technique I haven't even learned yet.
Yeah.
I shot my first soccer game, right? Like I'm, by the way, the world knows I'm not a big soccer proponent, but I'm learning. Football, as my European counterparts would call that so heavily and go, no, American football is not football. Okay, got you. I never shot soccer before, ever. And then my first ever chance to do so was for Getty shooting Juventus and it goes through like the run, and people are like, yeah, this is like at the highest levels. Mm-hmm. I guess like maybe if you never shot football before and you're shooting the Super Bowl, it wasn't the World Cup, but equivalent maybe to the Pro Bowl. Like, and I was like, I know none of these people.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Shooting action. I mean, it's kind of funny because like the first half that I shot, I'm sending in, the editor's like, those are great pictures for football. American football. We don't shoot that. We didn't this. And I'm like, I'm on like, almost a half of the game where I'm like, why does everybody keep kissing their freaking jersey? What the hell's that mean? You know what I mean? Like, what picture is that? And all this stuff. Like, I never did so much homework in my life because I had another game the following day, and I spent like 6 hours, dude, just literally watching footage and seeing like Getty images over Getty images, like who was doing this, who was doing that. I had no concept of what I was doing, and I went into this thing with just that confidence level of like, I can shoot whatever.
I take great photos. I take
great photos. I got this. Yeah. It's all good. And I'm not saying the photos weren't great and crisp and colorful and properly balanced, but they weren't newsworthy.
They weren't the moments.
They weren't the moments that these soccer people love. So. Man, I feed off that.
Right.
I love learning that for every different industry, which is why I want to work in them all. I want to shoot all of that. I shot EDC for 3 years in Orlando, and then got the opportunity to shoot 1 year here. Nice. And I did some drone work for them as well over there on the spot. And people are always like, "What do you think about festivals?" I'm like, "No more." That's the run. Like, I'd rather go, have a good time, do whatever else. But like, no, trying to take pictures and get like corporate content of these people who are all just torn out their minds.
Who are not.
Who are not. No. And like, did I do years of nightclub photos with the overdone flash and like somebody's little watermark on the bottom? And like, I've done all that. I don't want to do any of that. You know what I mean? Like, I like it. I'm not saying it. Some people do it at a way better level. Every time I see his pictures over there, I'm like, not only do I not want to take pictures at the Wynn, I don't actually even want to go anymore. I don't want to be here. Like, how the hell is that? I've been there 17 times, never seen any of those lights, bro. Stop it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just crazy because there's so many people that are honed in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things. Like, people are like, well, how do you do that? It is what it is. Main cards, for example, I overshoot the shit out of main cards for UFC events now, just looking for that punch face. You know,
right.
If they get in and go to striking, bro, the Alpha 1 goes on high plus, and people are like, "How many pictures you take for that fight?" I'm like, "It was 3 5-minute rounds. I think 6,000." You know,
right?
Like, you never know because but I'm tagging as I go through whatever else. But am I overshooting for purposes because I'm not confident? No, I'm overshooting because I'm trying to stop 1 second when it does happen, but it makes it way harder for me. That card's going to take forever to input. And
Yeah. You
get in that run.
Yeah. I was going to say what's even harder is boxing. There's so much faster than MMA
boxing,
guys.
bro. And then you're, again, it's like you could shoot the whole 10 rounds. Mm-hmm. And then just as you put your camera down for 1 second.
Yeah, there's that moment.
That one, and you're like, okay, I suck. Yeah. I will reapply with Magnamedia now for the next one. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Are you in the Canelo fight Saturday?
I am shooting just the pre. So I've got another photog that's shooting from there
main
on
card?
because he's shooting the main card setup and Viva Mexico. He's super Mexican Canelo fan, so that's a thing. I love doing that when you can. I love anybody that's going to be in the spot where it's like if that's your people, if that's your thing. Like, because have I shot the last couple years of Canelo fights? Yes, I have. I have a library full of Canelo fights, and it's like, do you want to shoot him? If it was my first one, sure. Mm-hmm. You know, what I mean, I'm always like, if it's the first one I haven't done it yet, yes, whatever it is, send me. I want to go. If not, then it starts to become one of those things where like, can I send somebody else?
Would be a little bit more stoked. Yeah.
Can I do this? That's going to enjoy this. Like, I mean, there's still gigs. We know how that thing is where like maybe the money's not even right. I'm still the one that to call somebody and be like, dude, I got this gig. It's on a Sunday afternoon at 2:00, but I know you love this guy.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's no money.
Yeah.
There's like no money. I mean, I could pay you $50. You know what I mean? Like that might cover your gas.
Right.
But the reality is you're going to have VIP stage access to the rest of this thing, blah, blah, blah. There's so much of that where it's like, it becomes a hard balance because the same things that you originally shot to get in the gigs, right? Like eventually become the things you don't have time for anymore. As weird as that is. But.
Well, yeah, it's like I love shooting music and I love shooting sports, but October's full of conferences and they pay infinitely better.
Stupid, way better.
Yeah. So it's like,
listen, I set up a live podcast set up for the HIMSS conference, which is coming back around now. It's the Health Management Sciences Conference, whatever else.
Gotcha.
And a company from Florida 2 years ago that I used to deal with in Florida hired me, and they're like, "Hey, we're coming out. We're vending at this conference center. It's going to be set up. It's huge." I had no idea how huge. Sometimes you go into these, you're like, "I've been coming to conferences here for 2 decades," and like. Sometimes the amount of money these people spend on a 20 by 30
ridiculous.
space that goes 2 stories and with offices and shit. I'm like, how much was this? They're like, $250,000 just for the build out. I'm like, and you have to break it down.
And then you rip it down in a week.
And then you have to store it here because you might do it next year. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, but they wanted to set up, super smart idea, by the way, if anybody's listening in the conference world, they do a podcast that they also do YouTube set up on there. And they wanted to set up, and they're like, why, rather than always going to these conferences and missing out on everybody in one spot, let's do a live podcast from our booth. And we'll ask everybody, and we'll shoot as many episodes as possible. So they hired me to be there for 3 days straight. We shot 42 episodes, right? 42 individual podcast episodes that were on film and fully audio recorded.
Wow.
Super smart because they met with all their industry leaders, the person who runs, man, people love that shit. They met with the person running the LVCC, the person running the conference, the president of this, the blah, 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 a senator, it was so crazy. And then they had a whole year's worth of content,
you have a whole year's worth of content.
There's a year's worth of content that you made in that 3 days that you paid $20,000 to vend at.
Right.
But you also came out with something very tangible.
Yeah. Well, you're going
to make... It's crazy the money that's in that. It's hard to bypass conference world, man. That's the thing.
I mean, I'm sure it's probably all marketing write-off for taxes, right?
Oh, for sure. All that stuff. Yeah, for sure. But it's the same. Like you love shooting music, you know what I mean? And it's one thing. And then you see the other side of that, right? Like the first time you get to shoot outdoors and you're like, I'm shooting the Chainsmokers, bro. It's crazy.
Right.
And then you're like shooting the Chainsmokers like behind the scenes, and then you're shooting the Chainsmokers ads, and then you're like just following the Chainsmokers, and you're like, dude.
Yeah, actually, I don't really care anymore.
Yeah, you're like, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Which is so funny because if you take the time though, to reverse that perspective and realize the you version that was there at first, man, if you can harness that and figure out how to recreate that every time, you're so set. In this industry, because will the ebbs and flows be there? Yes.
Yeah.
Will the money go up and down? Yes. And I tell everybody, I'm like, everybody's like, how do you make it in this? How do you make crazy money? I'm like, I don't. I don't. Bro.
Right.
I don't know. $1,500 a day for 13 months sounds like
that helps.
Money.
Yeah.
Fuck, dude.
That helps.
I think that's the beauty one of the pros of being freelance is because there's always like a different gig, a different
thing.
There is,
yeah, and you can figure out what pays the rent tomorrow. You know what I mean?
More so, I mean, that's what keeps things interesting. Because say I shoot, a 3-day conference, and then I'm like, I'm a little burnt out at conference, people talking, but it's kind of boring. Oh, cool, I'm shooting a wedding. Oh, that's exciting again. I've shot 4 weddings this week. I'm a little burnt out on that. Oh, cool, I got a sports gig. Like, oh, that's exciting. So it's like
100 the variety.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I haven't shot weddings in a little while. I shot one for a couple friends of mine that just got married in Tahoe.
Nice. Yeah, Mike loves Tahoe.
And like, I mean, I love it up there. It's just so great. But and I was like, I want the break in reality. And one of my mentors, one of the photos that I'm mentoring that over time in different industries trying to break through, I flew him out as a second shooter. You know, I'm like, let's go up to Tahoe, fly into Vegas, we'll drive up. Nice. Really taking the spot. We'll stop, and I took my drones. We flew a bunch of random abandoned stuff on the way up, and just made a fun trip out of it. Yeah. Flew back, by the way, and went all the way through Yosemite on the way back, which
fucking nice,
bro. From Tahoe back down Yosemite is I mean, I would fly there just to take that drive right now.
Really,
it's one of the best. Bro.
We didn't go through Yosemite, but you pass right by it. But so it's either you go through Nevada
or you cut it right around and back in.
Yeah, you go through Nevada, boring as fuck.
Nothing.
The way back, beautiful California. There's like people fly fishing in this river
redwoods everywhere.
Right.
It's like all postcards, bro.
Like, 2.5 weeks ago.
I stopped 7 times in 2 hours, and the people that were with me were like,
"Come on,
you gotta fucking stop, bro." And I'm like, "I can't, bro. I can't."
Yeah.
And I was driving the Tessie, so I had to work it out between there to make sure don't fuck up, because supercharger's a supercharger out here, bro. There is no chance they're coming through here, but. Man, what a gorgeous run. And I've done that a few times now. I actually even had a buddy meet me in San Francisco the one time, and we drove from San Fran all the way back up through NorCal.
Awesome. Across.
I love that. Through Nevada City and Greenville, Roseville, that whole area up through Sacramento. Gorgeous, fun run. I highly recommend it. But the wedding thing was fun, man. And it's fun because I've been 3-4 years now since I was doing weddings.
Yeah, it was exciting again. It was fresh.
It was fun to bring in different techniques. And I'm not going to lie. I referenced some of your photos. I referenced some other stuff because I love doing that just to be like, dude, this is what the cool kids are doing now.
Right.
Like, how do I do this? You know what I mean? Like, I'm always into trying that. I'm shooting UNLV game 2 weeks ago, right? And I'm trying to do light trails with the people. It's fun when you get in those things where you're confident enough in there that you're like, I saw this the other day on somebody else.
Yeah.
And then I want to do that. You know what I mean? There's different things for that. It's so crazy. And then you mentioned earlier, like celebs, you see stuff that they're fangirling. Yesterday, I'm walking with the kids in the park. Wife, we're just having a conversation. I get all kinds of weird people that jump on my Instas every once in a while, and you're like, oh, look, Tunchi's following me. Like, yeah, that's dope. Super cool if that was the case. But like last night, I'm just walking, just random stuff, and we get through there. It's weird when you're in this industry, you never know. Like Ben Liebenberg just decided to follow me last night.
Who's that?
There. He's the director of photography for the NFL, right? So and like so crazy because like you're like this like little outward scream, and wife's like, "Oh, who is it?" Is it like Kalani? Is it Cardi B? Like, who is it? And I'm like,
Beyonce's following you.
No. It's the DP of the NFL. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I've met him a few times in passing a spot. I don't think he knows who the fuck I am. Right. You know what I mean? And like, but he does now because something just made him do that. It's so something weird. Clicked. Like the little things that click that keep us going. Right. It's so weird. Like, I'm not saying I'm just building off that fanboy moment, but those are the little things where you're like, okay, just keep pushing.
Well, I remember when Jeff followed me back. I was like, oh fuck.
Bro, the first conversation I had with Batari, hey, Jeff, if you're watching this by chance, bro, I give people hell all the time, and I'm like, yeah, he's like, oh, man, you got to do this. And again, I love everything that I've ever been able to sponge off of JB, off Al Powers, off Chris Unger, off any of these guys that have just been doing either this one sport or otherwise. But it's a thing, like, I mean, just the NBA ties for Jeff, right, that most people are like, he did that? And I'm like, right, he's got 14 illustrated covers. Stop playing with me, you know what I mean? Like, I know this dude long before I ever met him. Yeah, and then the fact that eventually we're just talking, and now, I mean, he texted me the other day, he's like, right here. It's so weird, like, how that happens. I'm big in I did years and years of modeling stuff, you know what I mean? So my Self-Made Visions IG that's been overtaken by that for years, there's like 210,000 people on that at this point in time, but it's all just models. It's all just chicks. I got the chance to shoot a lot of those, and then over years, they all come into Vegas, you know what I mean? So I shoot a lot still to this day. But it's so crazy because, like, Keith Sell was one of my amazing spots 10 years ago, bro. I had, like, screensavers of girls he was shooting from Inked Mag and all these other stuff nonstop. And then I moved out here, and then I did a big model mansion party out in Henderson, and shot a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, holy shit, that's Keith, bro.
Right.
Like, I did the thing. I did the fuck it, I'm going to introduce myself. And it's crazy because he was just at my house for dinner 2 days ago. We've been great friends years later. It's a crazy run. You just never know. And it's like, it seems like that would be out of hand or like
out of reach. You know,
there's at a point where you're like, no, why would I know that?
Yeah, those paths will never cross.
I saw your shit for a while, stopped you dead in the middle of the NFL draft, I think. And I was like, Sean, he's like, what's up, bro? Who the fuck are you?
Like,
right? And I was like, Louis. And he's like, huh? I was like, it was a really weird Aubrey.
Then but it's also tough because there's no photos really of weird. You.
There's
so
no
I'm
photos
like,
of me. And you're like,
I just know a name, a little thumbnail maybe.
It is run. It's a crazy run. But I'm that guy. I definitely always take that opportunity to be like, dude, I've seen this dude's work. I'm going to go and introduce myself. Like, I want to do it.
And I do the same thing. I'm like, yo, Mike, I think we follow each other on Instagram, or I follow you. Nice to meet you. And I try to leave it at that. It's definitely backfired a couple times when people look at me like I'm fucking crazy. But I know in my heart, I was open and honest and outgoing. And
there's something about, I feel in business too, there's definitely something about that warm handshake feeling. So that's the case. Like if you and I ended up into a bucket for a client 2 months from now, the reality is when they go and I'm talking with I don't know Kirschbaum something, I'd be like, oh yeah, no, I mean there's a warm handshake tie that happens there, which is just an old school corporate technique where it's like this is so much an easier way. Or if somebody was like, again, where you're like, okay, well, deal with this person who's the PR rep there. I'm like, oh shit, I've already I got years knowing said person. I have this person on my Facebook. You know what I mean? Like, and then you realize like, okay, the dots were connected. It was via the warm handshake. It was via him saying that. So I'm always an open person to try and create that with as many creatives or otherwise as are. Like if we're going to work around each other. Like, I hate that about so many of the people. There's so many, I won't mention any names, but there's so many Review Journal and other people around here in town that work stuff that, again, they're number one, they're scared that we're just here to take their jobs.
Right.
They feel like at any moment if they slow down, we're coming in.
Take the foot off the gas.
Some 20-year-old's got my fucking job. It's all downhill. And then for that purpose, they're not very outgoing. Most photographers are pretty introvert to begin with. I think.
Well, I think because we're all nerds.
Yeah, we're all nerds. We're all just super geeks. So the extrovert portion is something we're constantly working on, regardless.
I especially like in more so in the like the sports realm or like a Getty type of thing. They are because it's competition. So it's like I got to be faster. I got to be better.
Straight competition because. How many, like the soccer competition we're talking about, I did that, right? There's 6 Getty photographers shooting at the same time.
Right.
Like you're selling the same photo.
Exactly. So it's still an old school.
How you been? Did you bring an extra water? Thank you so much. Get out of my fucking way because you're like you're in my pocket. You know what I mean? But at the same turn, that's so weird. I'm the one who goes to like the Aces game the other day and sends Ethan and Candace pictures of themselves. I send pictures of JB and I'm like, hey, send me a picture of Lil Wayne. And then like 2 hours later, he sent me back a message with haha. And I was like, don't sweat it, bro. I took my own. And then I sent him a picture of him taking a picture of Lil Wayne. And I was like, see, I be sniping, be watching, what's up? And he's like, dude, you're crazy with it. And I'm like, you never know.
Yeah.
But I'm a fan of that. I love going into those environments and knowing all those people. Aces game a couple weeks before that, I'm stopping in. I'm like, I stopped him while he's on the floor. I'm like, what's going on, bro? How you doing?
Yeah, he's saying, you're like, yo,
what's up? And he's like, what's up? What's up? It freaked me out. And I'm like, I just wanted to say hi. I see you in your domain. You're in the wild.
Yeah, because I shot a gig for it was a UFC event for LV CVA, whatever the fuck it was. But I had floor access, which was crazy because I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. But I had floor access because I was doing some social work. And Ryan Loco was there, Jeff was there, and it's funny because I had shot photos of both of them. Yeah. And they had shot photos of me. So days later they send me photos of me and my camera. I got you too, dude. So it's just funny that like
I have an entire library of Chris Unger, by the way, like because he's normally up there. Some
I was gonna say, and I feel like Chris really loves photos of himself. I don't know him that well, but he seems like a pretty quiet guy. Like,
he's super quiet.
He's super quiet.
Super quiet, super reserved. I love that about him, as a matter of fact, on there. Actually, I reached out to him the other day because he put that beautiful GIF up there that he did the other day. I was like, that is one of the cleanest GIFs that I've seen. He put it on his Insta of something from Contender Series this week. And I was like, bro, share the love. And he sent me an immediate link to how he did it in Photoshop. But it's like, it's literally one of the cleanest GIFs I've ever seen. And I was like, that is a photographer's GIF. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm even saying that right, still to this day, I don't know. 10 years in, I don't know if it's a GIF.
It's either GIF or GIF.
It's whatever. Can we just call it something? I mean,
what's the same thing with meme, right? Is it meme or what's the other version?
Meme. People say meme.
I call my grandma.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny part is that GIF actually stands for something interlaced.
Yeah, it has
format,
it's an acronym.
It actually is an acronym. So I'm like, it's funny that people say that shit all the time. I'm like, it's an acronym. So I don't know, say hey whichever way. But yeah, it's funny because I go back through and I'm like, how many pictures do I have over the years of Jeff or Josh or somebody else over there because they're at the other end of the cage and I'm shooting this run. So it's like, it's crazy. Same with Al. I've shot a bunch of him across the way or shooting something else like that. It's just cool though, because there's a comfort in that too, of having like, my boys are working. You know what I mean? Like I know
I don't see it. I don't see it on here. Did he post?
And it's nice when you're like secure with yourself and with your career and with like your community that you can like look at.
Oh, bro, I tell everybody all the time. I'm like, I'm so happy. Blessed to know.
Yeah.
Is it
people.
this one?
No. It's recent. Very recent. Is it? Did he? He didn't.
I don't think it's gone. I mean, there's no contender.
Where did I see it?
If it was on the story.
It might have been a story.
Photoshop. He did send me a thing. I said, cleanest GIF I've ever seen, bro. I gotta know. Maybe it was a story. Was it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not on the page.
Damn.
Come on, Chris. Fucking holding out on us.
Bro, he is holding out. It was so clean, though. It was so clean. I'll find it again. It was definitely, and I'll send you guys a link, but it was one of those things where it's like, I love that you can at least, like in the other world, right? I'd have gone down and spent 10 hours hunting down YouTube or something else.
Trying to
figure it out without possibly bothering somebody, you know,
right.
on what their style was, because I'm not trying to bite it, but I do want to know how you did it.
Yeah,
you know what I
mean? No.
But that's so crazy, because eventually you get to that point where it's like, bro, I wouldn't hesitate to reach out and say, bro, I have a couple old 35s. I'm thinking about doing this. And bro, I need a film advice right now. Yes, I was developing black and white film probably before you ever touched a camera.
Yeah.
But it was 20 years ago, bro.
Right.
Help me out. What am I looking at? You know what I mean? Like, little things, bro. I remember the day that Josh Hedges, by the way, literally first swapped over to Sony, right? I already been in Sony for 2 years before the UFC made the move from Nikon.
Before they switched from Nikon,
to Sony. And I remember he shot an entire 3 fights on site at one of the pay-per-views with the DMF turned on there, and he was like, something is terrible with my pictures, everything's fucking out of spot. And then I remember this whole little thing went on, and it was funny because, you know, it's like, just flip that little switch.
Yeah.
But it's like, but if you don't know, you don't know, and you got new gear, and we get new gear in that type of world, and you're like, immediately you just go to perform, not realizing how much comfort there is. And driving your old car to work, you know.
I mean, dude, I had the same thing. I recently, well, not recently, but a year ago, it was relatively recently after I switched over from Nikon to Canon, and I went from DSLR to mirrorless. Yeah. And I was talking with another photographer, and he was like, "Dude, my flash is not working." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I had just got the R3 like maybe a month prior, and he had just gotten it like more recently than that. And he's like, my flash is not working. It's working and it's not working." And I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "Well, let me see your camera." "Oh, it's on fucking silent shutter. Yeah, flash won't." And he was like, "Holy shit! I never."
Yeah, who would have known that?
And I was like, "Well, I learned
without
that
the mechanical shutter. Right. You know how I learned that? Because my flash didn't work."
Because exactly, I literally told him the same thing. I was like, I did the same thing. I was at home
hit
and I'm
up a Sony Pro or something. It's so weird how that works out. But I think ultimately it's all about building a bigger table at the top. That's the reality. If you have that mentality. Again, I'm not a religious person, crazy, grew up Catholic in school in there, but I mean, the Last Supper table is pretty big, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, so obviously the point is everybody to get to that top. Instead of, don't show pictures of these ladders with people climbing over each other.
Right.
This is an escalator.
Right.
Yeah. Just get on, sit on, shut up, and hold on.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if the dude's in front of you, behind, doesn't matter because you're all going to the same place, in the same direction. Some people are going to get there faster, slower, more creative, have cooler gigs, or maybe something that was more toned for you. You just never know what that is, but you also can't ever think to burn those bridges rather than just continue to build on it. Like, why would I not celebrate his new contract that he's got over there? Because down the road, what says that if he's now the DP of that, he's not going to need an associate producer for that? He says he's not going to call on somebody like, bro, didn't you say you have a drone that could do that? You know what I mean? Like, that's how this works. The word of mouth network will never surpass any other type of business.
That's the crazy thing. I get really insecure because I'm at a point in my career where 90% of my work, 95% of my work is word to mouth. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, what if that, runs out? What am I if that,
do? So where's my marketing ploy inside of that? Yeah. I agree. And that's where that extrovert comes in, where because you're taking the time then to introduce yourself to other people, right? On the spot. I mean, if I never went and said hi to him in the hallway of the NFL draft, we're not here right now.
Right.
Well, you know what?
So everything leads to something.
Yeah. Well, I met Josh Lyon at Aces game a few weeks ago, and he hired me for a gig next week. I just got off the phone with him. So it's the same concept.
That's the thing.
How I got the NHL thing was from Kaylee Foster, who I worked for before, where she was at MGM, and she worked with the UFC. And then if I never had met her...
Shout out Kaylee Foster. Good luck in LA.
Shout out to
Good
Kaylee.
luck in LA.
So if I had never met her, I never would have gotten... Mike and I got a text saying, hey, this position's open. You should apply if you're into that. if I never met her, I never would have known that position is open and to
Same
apply.
run. Same run. I mean?
So,
I have the same stuff. I mean, most of my guys have made it pretty decent over there that I did shoot originally. Jaguar stuff in there over there. One of them still shoots for the Jags, but he's amazing. Getty Sport put his stuff out there all the time. Shout out James Gilbert. He's pretty amazing.
Oh,
shoots
I follow
a lot
him
of
on
stuff.
Instagram.
Yeah, so James is a good buddy of mine. I remember when he was still just playing in Daytona State College on picking up a camera for the first time, and he's one of Getty Sport's fine dudes out of there. And Brendan Aspel came out at the same time in there, and Brendan now is the manager of photography for the Miami Dolphins. So my buddy Jordan Harold is the manager of photography for the UF Gators. Like, it's amazing where these things go, and then you're like, to think to not celebrate that is crazy because and how does that turn back to you? You're crazy if you don't think that could.
Well, look at us right now.
That's it.
We're just literally nerding out on our hobbies and our passion and our jobs.
And we could talk about it all day. Ultimately, and have a great time. You're like, we could
podcast.
literally talk about it all day. But the reality is that there's great stuff. And then what's going to happen here too is that we'll leave here today, the type of people that we are, and then that's going to be in the back of your mind. What is there something that all of us could be doing in any one of those, narratives there that works, or where that works otherwise, in between getting individual gigs and who that person is. And again, that's still years later.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude running the NBA for our little NBA local league, whatever they're right. Meet him during NBA 2K, shooting that run for that. And then is there games to shoot down that road on the stuff? And then to find out that they're slacking in the Phoenix market and the San Diego market for Getty and Newswire photographers that are specific to those things. And I'm like, I can do that.
Right. Yeah.
I'll go. Today.
I could go to Phoenix. Yeah, hour flight to
Phoenix
either one.
31 minutes.
Yeah.
Bro. Stop playing. Let's go. And again, like, there's money in that. And then some of those gigs is the other side. Teaching young photographers as well on which gigs you should take for even money, no money, or otherwise, or like cost. That becomes a thing too, where I'm big on that. It's like, well, do you want to invest in you? I mean, is that gig, the guy that's shooting that next to you that you wish you were doing, he's been doing it 20 years. He's making a $750 day rate today to shoot that, right? You got offered $200 from another company, but you got the same access.
Right.
Shut up.
And you get to stand next to him.
Shut up.
Maybe get to know
ask him.
And
Meet him.
yourself to
Introduce yourself.
Shake hands with the other
Shake
guy
his
or
hand.
gal.
Tell him you're a fan of his work. Tell him you've seen it before.
Yeah.
See, that's funny because I've noticed, I haven't been shooting sports that long, but sometimes I'm in situations where some people do seem a little more quiet or a little less.
Yeah, you just got to read the room.
A little less outgoing. No matter what, I'm always like, yo, what's up? I'm Mike. Or, hey, nice to see you again. Oh, hey, have a good day.
It's a photographer's thing.
And then eventually,
they
see me like, oh, hey, Mike, how are you? And they try to beat me to it. And it's like,
there's so many people that I still do this today that don't know my name, by the way. Shout out to all those people. But, or maybe they do, but it's a thing where it's like, but I don't know. For me, it's always comfortable. I'm always like, I'm the most comfortable then if I've kind of made that apparent. And I hate to be noticed. Like, I'd hate to work an Aces game that you're on the other side and have not said something.
Yeah.
So if I peep across and I'm like, Mike's there. I didn't see him spot. Like, I'm going to make it a point at halftime to take away that fucking awkwardness, because then I'm like, has he seen me? Do I see him?
It's funny because when you came and said hi, I had no fucking idea you were there.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, it's perfect. I love doing it.
Yeah, you gave me the fucking sneak attack. I was like, sick.
I do that with I'd pop in on Ethan. I pop in all those guys. It's great. Listen, it's just everybody's out there fighting for the same piece of the pie. We're super blessed here in town. Though. The pie's humongous.
The pie is
and they continue delivering more pie. You know what I mean? So the reality is we're talking about this.
As long as the pie ain't running out.
Yeah. What does this podcast sound like? The same concepts we're talking about right now, 5 years from now. 5 years from now, it's probably ridiculous, and we might need agents to even put our time together. You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it was like, yeah, they said they want to do this. They've been planning it for 6 months. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But you just never know, like, what the concepts of those conversations are. If somebody would have told me 5 years before that, when I was shooting, Post Malone in concert with no face tattoos, that I was going to be sitting on the field for the Super Bowl last year.
Right.
Like, no, nobody would say that. I was like, yeah. I don't know. Surprise myself every time with that. I'm interested in whatever the next surprise is every day. That's the fun of it.
Dude, I open consistently each day. I'm like, oh, I'm just excited just for what's coming in the future.
Yeah.
Every day I'm excited. I'm just excited.
Yeah, I live by a simple mantra that today is the day you wish for yesterday.
Yeah.
Today is the day you wish for.
Yeah, so every day when you're like, man, I can't wait for tomorrow, bro, because tomorrow that new drone drops, or my camera's going to be back, right? Or tomorrow I'm shooting this gig, right? Or tomorrow I'm doing that. So we live in this mindset of FOMO based on that tomorrow, right? Which is everything culminated to get you to where tomorrow's got that thing. But today is that day that yesterday you wished for. So make the best of it, whatever it is today. That's the whole point, is just live it, because none of it's guaranteed. None of it's anything else. I don't want to make it too crazy cliche, but the reality is once you find whatever that is that makes you tick, you know what I mean? Just keep ticking. People are like, dude, you're everywhere. I'm like, I have one problem. I believe objects in motion stay in motion.
Yeah.
And I know that every time I sit down for any longer and drink another coffee, my bones hurt, my back hurts, my mind hurts, my scheduling hurts, my calendar hurts. It all hurts.
Yeah.
The only way I know to go through it is
keep going.
Push. Just keep going. Like,
that's something funny that David Becker told me.
Yeah.
David was like,
love David today. He's another great one.
I was like, you're the man.
OG.
How do you? I was like, you just are always moving. He's like, if I stop moving, I feel like shit. I just have to keep
I can't
going.
do it. I will literally. That depression thing is real that I mentioned earlier. Like, I will, if I get to the point where I'm not working on something like that, then that's it. I'm just like, I'm binge watching Netflix, going, let it all die.
Burn it all to the ground.
Burn it in the parking lot. Let's go tattoo something else. You never know, bro. But it gets to that point because that's the problem. I did see a great TEDx talk on that where the guy talked about that, where it's out of most creatives, that 100%, 90% of it is just that clock we're stuck in, which is the hustle, right? There's only 3% of that pie that's tied to actually delivering the goods that we deliver, because immediately the dopamine goes away once you deliver.
What's the next thing?
As soon as you hand it to it and they go, dude, these pictures are great. You're like, thank you. Cool. You're just not interested.
Right. Cool.
100% facing the other direction already. You know what I mean?
Literally, we were talking about that before you got here. We were mentioning like a client, like a month and a half after, being like, hey, do you have photos of this, or can you make changes of this and that? And you're like,
where?
Dude,
I don't know where that's at.
You're like, that's so old. Like, as soon as I delivered the deliverables.
Insert Drobo commercial here, bro. Like, I'm not ready to go into the NAS for that.
As soon as I sent you photos or I got paid, that thing is, yesterday was old news.
People are always like, I'll see somebody at a next pay-per-view, right? And then they're like, yeah, I just saw you in Salt Lake City last year. Hey, do you have that picture on spot? I'm like, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I shot 7 sporting events last week.
Yeah, last week was a year ago.
I have 2 terabyte drive on my Mac, right?
Yeah.
You understand that as of event 3,
it's already,
I had to wipe the thing. You know what I mean? Like, 15 little SSDs got filled up, and then those went to the NAS. Like, so what you're asking me to do is have home time. My wife does too, bro. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so when I get there, the last thing I want to do is argue with her that I'm not actually here for dinner. I'm just here to
do something else.
Old picture that I took of Nas in 2016. You know?
Right.
Like, I don't know where the hell to find it. And I'm getting much better about my organization for that type of stuff, but most people don't realize the amount of content. You know what I mean? I have 32 terabytes that I run on my NAS at home right now that's like built up, and I'm like, bro, I don't. Yeah. Just the storage space alone is getting to be a whole full-time gig.
I just built a 36 in 20, and I have everything from 2020, and it's almost full.
Yeah, you do a lot of video though too, right?
No, he does no video.
95% photos.
The video is what kills me. I do a lot of like video clips. I do a lot of stuff, and then the drone video stuff.
Video
kills me
I realize that too with the social gig and it's like, fuck, this is.
I've gotten way better on some of the workflow that I do for like some of the UFC stuff though, because I do tag and bag while I'm running through the pictures.
Yeah.
Live review, do the whole spot, and obviously I'm also FTPing off whatever I've got that's already been tagged and selected first. So using Photo Mechanic, that comes in first. You know what I mean? And then boom, I let it run off. And I used to keep every single picture, and I've stopped doing that now. So I keep the selects plus any areas where there'd be a concern for if I needed another angle of that shot or something. But for the most part, I know that, like I said, if I put it in high plus for this 15-minute round, bro, do I need 6,000 pictures? No. I pulled 35.
Right.
And then I have that conversation with myself where I'm always like, oh, but you never know. And then I'm like, okay, so replay the last 5 years. How many times has one of my big boy editors said, I would pay X number of dollars if you could procure one of these photos again?
Really?
It's 0 times. It's never happened.
And how many times have you looked back at those?
Never.
Exactly.
I don't have fucking
never
time.
No.
I've gone before. I've shot people in this past year where I'm like, oh shit.
I think it's.
I told 5 people I never shot this dude before, and I have a whole gallery.
I think outside of, like literally the 1 in a million years of like the pandemic happening, we were like, I just got nothing but time. Let me go back through old photos and edit. It's not going to happen.
It won't. No,
it's not.
The thing.
It's not. Like, you're too busy. You can't even keep up, especially in our day and age where it's like we're trying to post on social media for our own, workflow.
Right.
I can't go backwards now. I can't go back. I could barely keep up with what I shot in the last month. Yeah, I'm not going to go through my hard drives. No.
I refuse to pay $1,500 a week for it.
The only time I'm digging through is like, if there's let's say a certain area where someone's like, hey, do you have any work in this lane? Let's just say I do get an off. Hey, do you have some products? Oh, let me dig through, find that folder that has product photography, and then send it your way.
That's a great one. I did that recently because I did an architectural shoot for a company inside the World Market Center, and I pulled a bunch of my old real estate stuff. You know what I mean? But even with that, like I use SmugMug, I have every online world of there as well that I've used over the years. So PhotoShelter, SmugMug, I'm like, which one do you want, man? I can go back to Flickr too. I probably
Photo Bucket.
I can send you photo buckets. I can send you, where do you want it, bro? You want it in Dropbox? You want it in Google Drive? You want it they all have photos.
Yeah, you print, I'll swing by.
My wife was giving me hell just because I had my iPhone 14 Pro Max the other day. I'm trying to show her a picture. I took a kid. She's like,
13,000 photos
on
your phone.
How many pictures are in your thing? Look at this. That's when you know people have problems. When you figure that out. If you look at the library and realize there's 30,788 right in the library and 7,400 videos, and people are like, what do you do with that? I'm like, pay to put that in the cloud. That's all.
Pay $2 a month to make
see, you know the problem.
I think I'm at like 17. You guys got a shit ton on there.
The point is like, well, I also transfer, because that's such a good thing now, I transfer a lot of my photos to the phone.
Yeah, I'm only at 15
that way because it's a good run. So a lot of mine are on their back that would normally just be on SmugMug or PhotoShelter or anything else. I FTP a lot of mine just up there as well, just so I have them in categorized. Anything that I do full captions on now, I send a full FTP copy to myself, to my own PhotoShelter.
Smart.
So my PhotoShelter has actually never been for anything else, except I do have a couple vendors that have access that I can just then click and say, I'll give you all these galleries. And they're already pre-SEO. They're already fully captioned.
Right.
They're in there. Somebody's like, oh, did you cover UFC 281? Like,
yeah, it's in there.
It's in there. It's all there. I mean, like, so that's a cool part to have. But other than that, there's no real organization. People are like, yeah, and I could organize this. I'm like, oh, good. We ran it out. Hell yeah. Sorry, bro. It's a run. That's good shit.
Sorry. Let's
bro, I'm stoked. That was a great time.
Let's keep the audio. Let's
let's
leave
run it
the people with some words of wisdom from you.
What you got?
Any recommendations, life advice?
Don't ever say no without just looking in. I mean, ultimately, again, that mantra of, today's the day you wished for yesterday, I definitely live by that, just to the fact that you don't ever want to take for granted what got you to here. You know what I mean? We're all trying to be a better version of us now. But, man, if I could have seen me now 5 years ago, right, I'd have been like, I'm all in. You know what I mean? And instead of all the
imagine if when you were still working that desk job as the IT,
right? If I could have seen that canceling all of that and all the drama that went, you'd have done anything.
Yeah,
I'd have done anything just for the chance to, before my mom passed, I got to shoot her a picture of like, hey, look, I'm on the sidelines for a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like,
fucking cool.
When she was, probably at that time, one of the only people that were like, just fucking do it. You know what I mean? Everybody else around me was like, you're gonna fucking go broke, bro. Yeah. Ha have fun with that.
That's so funny. My mom was the same way.
My mom was my biggest proponent all that time. I have so many other family members that were like, dude, you make good money. You got a good, solid job. The banking relationship's good. You got a high credit score. And I'm like, there's more, guys.
There's more to that.
There's more. I know people that have never had a credit card and they're happy. You know what I mean? It's depending on happy. I'm like, it's a thing. Like, it depends on what that is. And I've been super blessed that a lot of it has ran me into a dead end that somehow or another had like fruit on a tree that I made the best out of it. But you just don't ever know what's around that corner. So push. Make more. I have a new mantra. It's funny because Kaylee has promised to get it tattooed. I'm going to start a new path because my newest path that I'm going to push. Kaylee Foster has promised to get this tattoo with me at the same time. But I have a mantra I live by every day. It's called create at all costs.
Okay.
It's an amazing spot. I just had Still Ballin' here in town draw that up for me in an amazing tattoo style. Old school, old English style, cool spot. But create at all costs. And it literally, if you look up the definition of at all costs, it means by any definition, whatever it takes.
Right.
You know what I mean? I truthfully live that every day. Create at all costs. Does that mean photography? No. It means it's part of it. Does it mean videography? Does it mean more sketches? Does it mean more sneakers, more sneaker drawings? Whatever. Just create at all costs.
Right.
Because it took me the first third of my life to realize that that's what makes me tick. That's the passion. The passion is to create. I love creating. And then just like we talked about, once it's created, I don't give a shit.
Right, yeah.
I want to move on. I
yeah.
love that people in our world love that work. That's where Instagram's played out. That's where social media has played out for us, because a lot of people are like, oh, you're clout hopping, you're doing this and that. I'm like, bro, that I've gotten more work from my Instagram in the past 4 years.
Yeah.
Like there's people that I've connected with, clicked with, and now if you look, like that's my feed too. Like my feed's full of like French bulldogs and photography. That's why people are like, why? I'm like, because I have French bulldogs and photography. Like, it's a thing. Like, but ultimately, it's just a big digital business card of where you've been, what you're doing, and like we're all always behind on that. Could we have had more? Yes. Could we have put more up there?
Right.
But create at all costs. Like that's the thing. When you're sitting in bed, when you're depressed because the week didn't go that way, or a gig changed, or they dropped you last minute, or you thought you had it but you didn't, or I mean, this year I had it through their spot. I was shooting for ESPN for the big fights in April, and you know, lead up to that, I changed my Hawaii trip to shoot that because I was supposed to be shooting Bellator in Hawaii, which is a yearly deal that I do for obviously going to Hawaii.
Yeah,
and I was supposed to go with the wife, the whole thing, and I canceled all of it 2 weeks prior to shoot that boxing match for ESPN. And then when we came down to the day of, Magna didn't have me an apron spot to shoot for ESPN. So I shot from the top up there. Still got the photos.
Oh, then I saw you probably?
Yeah. So it was great, and we're shot up there. It's whatever. But like, I had a hard time for weeks dealing, not that it was ESPN's fault, not that it was anybody else, but the fact that it didn't align the way I had predefined it in my head, and what I left on the line probably just makes me sound like an asshole to anybody that I talked about it to. Like, dude, I chose this over that, and it kind of screwed me.
Right. Yeah.
But there's something internally that you've got to focus on to be able to take that in, wash it. You know what I mean? It's just a deal. Like, it's no different if you're talking to an athlete. Like, you're going to win, you're going to lose. It's okay.
Right.
You're not, this isn't the end. You know what I mean? Like, learn from it, move forward, figure out how to not do that in a spot. Does that include making a better relationship maybe then with the credentialing authority? Making a better relationship with this? Like, what took place that brought us to there?
Right.
And is there any way to find out? Is there a way to find out if that's the case? And that's where that create at all costs just comes. It's like, just keep pushing. Whatever it is, create. There's somebody somewhere that's looking at it. I meet people and talk to people every day, whether it be in social media, live in person or otherwise, that say, bro, I love your work.
Right.
Bro, I've seen this before. I don't know who these people are. You know what I mean? I don't know who you are. I don't know what that inspired you to do, but I love that it did. You know what I mean? Because so many people have and continue to do so for me. We're sitting here at a table of them just the same. You know what I mean? I look at you guys' work. I do the same thing. I'm like, oh, man, I'd love to get back into this. Oh, man, I'd love to get back into that. If your work causes other photographers and creatives to want to do that.
Right.
Bro.
You're doing something,
That's doing something right. So that create at all costs. Stay tuned, Kayla. We're still getting that tattoo. I'm telling you. We're starting on there. It's happening. But, yeah, that's a deal. Like, I love the fact to see in the newswire world, right? I love to see that people can do multiples, right? People are always like, oh, it's Jeff Batari. He's the UFC team photographer. I'm like, and Golden Knights.
Right, yeah.
And NBA. And then the reality is how do you get through those things? Well, but that's because you're putting align yourself with the right people, align yourself with the right people in the right places, and then the right things which you love.
Right.
So if somebody gives you that opportunity, you're going to pour it all on the table, leave it all on the stage. You know what I mean? And that's where it's at. There's a million people out here today that take better pictures than me, but access is key.
Right.
Access is everything. So, and access doesn't come from the camera. The access comes from your personability, your, again, just everything that falls into that. Are you a good human, bro?
Right.
You know what I mean? Can you just be a good human?
Yeah. Are you a good person?
Are you friendly? Are you easy to work with? Are you punctual?
That's
do you
so
have
funny.
do you have the equipment? Are you interested in investing in the equipment if you don't have it? There's another one. Somebody told me a year and a half ago, like, bro, if you want to really be doing this for the Newswire service on there, you need a 400. I'm not a staffer, bro. You just told me I need a $13,000 lens.
Right.
I bought a $13,000 lens. Here's the reality. It's the best fucking thing I ever did.
Right.
I've literally sold more pictures because of buying that. And it's another tool in the bag that I don't grit. There's not like oh shit, you want me to do what? You know what I mean? Like it's a run. Like,
well, and it also follows to your point of access, right? Because if you are shooting a concert from the soundboard,
boom,
my 7200, which most of us have,
Yeah.
is nowhere near your fucking 400. So who's going to get that? I got
the 200 to 600 as well, but
Right.
like it's a shoot. Okay, if you're in a brightly lit arena, that's great.
Yeah.
If you're shooting UFC, 5.6 ain't gonna do it today, bro. You know what I mean? Well, let alone 6.3. Right. It's not an option.
Yeah, I remember. That's funny. I actually remember before I knew you, I saw you with that 200 to 600, or it was 100 to 400, but you had the stickers on it.
Yeah, I love that one, and that's a great lens too. Listen, I got tied up in that spot. I bought more glass than I ever needed to. You know what I mean? And I shot Canon for 10 years. You know, before moving that run, and right up until the 5D Mark IV. Not a Mark IV, before I made the Sony switch, and only because of all the production stuff I was doing at the time.
Right.
And it was a little Netflix gig that I was working on at the time where the first year was like, he can't be on set anymore. And I was clicking away, but that was the job. You know what I mean? And he was like, it was too loud, bro. He heard every picture I took. And he's like, by the way, how many pictures did you take? And I'm like, really happy to be here. Just can't give it 110%. You know what I mean? Like, and then I realized, holy shit. So Sony, and I never looked back. You know what I mean? It's a run. And again, everybody followed quickly thereafter.
Right.
A couple years though for Canon. A couple years though for Nikon.
Right.
I was, you know, I'm already 5 years shooting mirrorless on Sony. You know what I mean? A lot of people are like, yeah, just picked up this.
Yeah, literally, I'm like a year in on mirrorless.
Yeah, I needed that then. And those are the little things you never know. What was that? Because of one little thing. Has that been a prevalent part of my business now where I'm like, got to shoot in silent? No. People ask me all the time, they're like, does your camera make noise? Like, I hope not.
Yeah.
I mean, like, did I ever turn that back on? Not unless I'm using a flash.
Right.
Like, so there's the tie back. But yeah, I mean, you just never know what the next tool is, the next gig. And again, there's a part of you that dies inside where you're there. Like, I saw you shoot. You were shooting a 200, 600 for the game the other day, weren't you? Or shooting a 1 to 4?
100, 300.
100, 300. So again, there's some operational limits to that design. The difference is, does today's cameras need that, right? Like I tell people all the time, like, I don't know, my Alpha 1 will shoot in 10,000 ISO with no noise. You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm shooting for a newspaper. If that's the case, and most of them are going to use a 640 by 480 version of my picture. I shot in 8K.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, dude, stop. That's not the thing. Nobody cares. How many times have you shot a billboard?
Yeah.
Or a 18-wheeler that they wrapped your picture on the truck? Because that's what I'm shooting.
Yeah.
That's the resolution I'm shooting for is the side of the Allegiant Stadium. Right. We're selling it
on a phone
and you're looking at it on a phone.
Yeah.
Please stop. You know what I mean? Like, just know. And if I had one thing that I'd leave everybody with is that there's one mantra I literally heard when I started this creative path. I've never ever forgot, and it got me past my block. Right. And I don't know what a photographer's block is called, a creative block, whatever it is, but done is better than perfect. Remember that one. Done is better than perfect. This has gotten me out of so much stuff because I do dabble in a lot of video. I do a lot of the video stuff as well. It's not my main gig. I do a lot more drone video and stuff like that for clients then that tie into it. But I love all these different styles and everything else from there. But doing video, bro, that's how many video projects do you have in your premiere list right now that never turned to videos? and I'm going to tell you, got some. There's some in there somewhere because you eventually either overproduced it. Right. You didn't shoot to the edit. Something took me a long time to learn to do, right? Like, I'm here. I need this and that. And you're like, dude, what are you going to do with that? Nothing ever. You know what I mean? But then the other thing is, like, there's so much of that we put out where we're so worried about what everybody else is going to think about it. The podcast is a great point. I tell people, just start it. People are like, I'm thinking about doing a YouTube channel. Just do it. Just do it. Make 3 episodes and then go.
Right.
If it fails, it fails. What does that mean? Some of the best podcasts in town, if you go and look at their YouTube channel, are like 18 views.
Right. That's us.
I'm like, yeah, that's 18 views. Yeah, but then if you go look at what they did maybe on Apple or otherwise, like 37,000 people might have listened to that.
Right.
Just because it didn't work in one medium doesn't mean it didn't work in the other. More importantly, what did you learn?
Yeah.
Did they get better? Are they getting better? Are you more confident? Would you do something different in that world? Every time. Done is better than perfect. I'd rather get criticism on the final delivery than have never had anything for them to see.
Because you're trying to...
Yeah, because I'm like, he's got so much... How many old pictures, right? Where you're like, dude, I'm such a better editor now. You know what I mean? That's a photographer stuck all the time.
Yep.
So now what I do is I go back. I pick an event every year, by the way, and I go back at the end of the year in December. It's something that I've done for 5-6 years now running. I pick an event that I did last year, and I re-edit all the photos.
Nice.
With my new
That's opposite of what we said earlier, but yes.
It is, but just for me, because I don't have anywhere to put them. It's not like I'm reselling them.
Right.
But it's a great way to see did I progress, right? Yeah. Is there something that I learned, or did I just find that what I had last year as the tool set was everything I needed all the way up to this year. So all those hours I spent looking on YouTube at this guy got an R1, this got an R3, this lens, this, that. I needed none of that shit.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? What I needed was what I had.
Yeah.
I also force myself always to do one lens option. So that's something I've been doing a lot more on there. One time a week, or one time a month, I should say, I try to shoot either for my own self or something I'm shooting. One lens, one camera body.
Oh.
I love doing that now.
Forces
you to be a little more creative, right? Because I have 17 pieces of glass. I can fit every focal range in every situation. Right. I don't want to carry all of them. I don't want to have just two, Pelicans behind me with all the lenses.
Right, with all your
I'm a
arsenal.
Canon store. You're like, you're also not doing anything creatively.
Yeah.
You're just literally covering the balance of all of that. So I love taking just leave the house with the 85 1.2. What can I do? And the stuff that you'd never realize, let's take a creative picture of that button and bokeh love and get back to the creative juices flowing of something that really gets you back in there to make you want to see if there's some way you can do that.
Right.
I've tried pushing the 130 millimeter prime through the cage. You know what I mean? Doesn't work. But
you tried.
Manually, I've tried. I got a couple cool pictures and people are like, does it work for the workflow? No. But it's a great way to reinvest. Reinvigorate yourself. The passion doesn't come by default. We think it does, but it doesn't. There's definitely, you got to feed it.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely have to feed that beast.
Look how blessed we are that we get to do this anyway. We have an outlet. How many people every day that maybe even viewing this or listen to it otherwise? How many
that thing died, but we're just on audio.
Listening, but still, how many people get to do that don't have an outlet? They don't even have somebody a peer that they could say, what do you think? Yeah. How's this? You know what I mean? There's something about that. I do that all the time. People always ask me, again, I took somebody through my real estate photos the other day at a UFC weigh-in when I'm and they were like, dude, you ever do real estate? And I'm like, bro.
Yeah.
You only knew.
Yeah. And let me show you.
How much time do you got?
Yeah. Let me show you my style. And he was like, dude, every time I ask you something, it's always like a TEDx type of thing. I feel.
That's how we feel right now.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, that's great. Why die with that? Why not leave a little bit of those breadcrumbs behind? So that it continues on. I told you we're on an escalator. They're not stairs.
Right.
If people don't get on at the bottom, bro, we never get to the top.
Yeah.
So it's the real deal. You got to also build below as above. You know what I mean? And a lot of the stuff that we write off that we've learned the hard way, people are hungry for. That's why YouTube and podcasts and things like that are such a great spot for creatives. I remember, I watched years and years of Peter McKinnon and Casey Neistat, right? And then for the past 5 years, Casey. I have shot, a great little separate deal that they do out of there that I shoot, the Vid Summit, every year for 5 years now. And I've had the great opportunity to personally shoot pictures of and with Peter McKinnon, Shondoras, Casey Neistat, all these names of these people that for years I should just be like, oh my God,
they're get on that on the computer screen,
they're on the TV, they're on the YouTube, their thing, and they're just other creatives, people, just whatever, and not unaccessible.
Right.
They're not outside of any of this reach, and what they've reached or achieved is definitely not unaccessible for anybody else. You just got to create at all costs. You just have to do it, make it happen, and put it out there.
Shit, we should all get that tattoo.
Hey, create at all costs. I think we put that out there, and I'm gonna put the website together that sells the shirts and the other.
He's
stuff.
He's gonna start a whole new business now.
But here's the deal. I think we put that towards eventually creating some type of yearly scholarship or something for one aspiring photog or something. Yeah. And we sell a brand that goes crazy, right? We drop it under a little 501c run. It's a not for profit, just as a thing. But then we put the design that I've paid to have out there in a spot. As a matter of fact, we'll even send it to you on, transfer paper ready for the tattoo studio to do it wherever. And next thing you know, what if 5 years from now, there's people just randomly coming up to you at the iHeart Music Festival, like, bro,
I got fucking cold. That's how cold start, dude.
That's it.
That's how cold start.
That's it. We just started the new COVID. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Listen, appreciate you guys so much.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Super cool having on there. Can't believe we talked 3 hours. This is a Joe Rogan level podcast.
This is 247. We surpassed. We surpassed Jordan's.
Holy
and
shit!
That was
I'm
almost
sorry.
2.
Guys, I got to learn to shut up sometimes. Right? I guess at the end of the day, the podcast is the one spot you're not supposed to shut up, right?
Exactly. That's why we're doing
it.
What great fun you'll have clipping that into something.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
I think, sorry about that. That's a lot. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot spot. Listen, life's about experiences, and I got plenty.
Yeah.
Ready to make more. We're on to the next ones.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
With that, bye.
See ya.
Peace.